Do you know that the right message can completely change how someone feels about you? Imagine saying something so captivating that they can't stop thinking about you. Whether you're rekindling a spark, deepening a bond, or making someone notice you for the first time, this video is your ultimate guide. Stick around, because I'm revealing 12 powerful relationship messages they cannot resist. These are designed to grab their attention, touch their heart, and ensure you're never ignored again. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to transform your communication and leave an unforgettable impression. Let's get started. Number 1, you make me want to be a better version of myself. Here's the thing, when someone tells you, you make me want to be a better version of myself, it's like hitting the emotional jackpot. It's not just a compliment, it's a whole vibe, a heart-to-heart statement that says, you inspire me to level up in ways I didn't even know I needed. It's about showing someone that their presence in your life isn't just enjoyable, it's transformational. Why does this message hit so hard? Because deep down, we all crave to be seen and valued, right? And when someone connects with you in a way that makes you want to do more, be more, and strive for greatness, it's magnetic. It's almost like their belief in you sparks something inside, a hidden drive that makes you want to unlock parts of yourself you've been holding back. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This isn't about changing who you are or morphing into someone else to gain approval. No, it's about growth. It's about tapping into the best version of you, the version that's been sitting quietly in the background, waiting for the right kind of encouragement to take center stage. This person, the one who sparks this drive in you, becomes like a mirror, but not the kind that shows flaws or imperfections. They're the mirror that reflects your potential, your power, your unrealized dreams. Let's break it down a little more. When you send someone a message like this, you're not just saying, I like you or you're fun to be around. You're saying, your energy pushes me to think bigger and dream harder. It's almost like telling them, you're the fuel to my fire. And who doesn't want to feel like they're that important to someone? It makes them see themselves differently too. This kind of message is also layered with vulnerability. When you tell someone they make you want to improve, you're admitting two things. 1, that you're not perfect, because who is? And 2, that you see them as someone worth growing for. That's deep. Vulnerability like that creates connection, and connection is the glue that holds any meaningful relationship together. But let's be real. A message like this isn't something you throw around casually. It's got weight. It's not a cheesy pickup line or a surface-level compliment. It's a confession that says, you matter. You're important. You're a game changer in my world. And because of that, it makes the recipient feel irreplaceable. Here's the kicker, though, this isn't just about romance. Sure, it works wonders in a romantic relationship, but this kind of sentiment can strengthen friendships, too. Imagine a friend hearing this from you. How would it feel to know they inspire you to chase your dreams or be kinder, more patient, or more driven? It's powerful stuff. So, when you write, you make me want to be a better version of myself. Don't let it stop at words. Let it mean something. Back it up with actions. If they make you want to be better, be better. Show them you're serious about it, whether it's by following through on a promise, working on a bad habit, or pursuing a goal that's been gathering dust. In the end, messages like this stand out because they're more than just text on a screen. They carry emotion, intention, and a little bit of magic. And if you deliver it authentically, they won't just read it, they'll feel it. And when someone feels something that real, it's impossible to ignore. Number 2, just hearing your voice instantly puts me in a good mood. There's something so magical about certain voices, isn't there? It's like they carry this unique energy that can change the entire vibe of your day. Telling someone that their voice alone lifts your spirits isn't just sweet, it's deeply personal and creates a connection that's hard to forget. Think about it. How often do we actually take the time to tell someone how much their voice means to us? It's such a simple thing, but it can be insanely powerful. When you say, "Just hearing your voice instantly puts me in a good mood," you're not just complimenting them, you're letting them know they have this rare ability to affect your emotions in the best way possible. That kind of statement is like a direct line to someone's heart. It says, "You're special to me in a way that's beyond the surface." And let's be real, it feels amazing to hear that. Think about how this could play out in your relationships. Maybe they're having a rough day, and out of nowhere, you tell them this. Instantly, it's like the weight of the world gets a little lighter. You've just given them something priceless, the knowledge that their existence makes someone else genuinely happy. That's not something people hear every day, and when they do, it sticks. What makes this message even better is how versatile it is. You don't have to save it for some grand romantic moment. It works just as well in casual, everyday conversations. Maybe you're on the phone, and their voice has this calming or uplifting effect. Saying it in that moment feels spontaneous, which makes it even more authentic. Or maybe you send it as a text out of the blue, letting them know that even when they're not physically there, their presence is felt. And here's the thing, when you say something like this, it's not just about them. It's about the connection the two of you share. Their voice resonates with you because of the bond you've built together. It's this unspoken way of saying, "You matter to me, and I value what we have." That's the kind of sentiment that can deepen a relationship and make someone feel truly seen. But let's not overlook the subtle nuances of how you say it. Tone matters. If you say it with a smile or in a playful way, it can feel lighthearted and fun. If you're more serious or thoughtful, it can come across as deeply heartfelt. Either way, the impact is undeniable. It's all about tailoring the moment to fit the vibe of your relationship. Now, let's talk about why this works on such a psychological level. People crave validation, not the shallow, surface-level kind, but the deep-down feeling of being valued for who they are. A compliment like this goes straight to the core. It's not about their looks or something they've done, it's about who they are. Their voice, something they don't even think about most of the time, has this incredible power over you. That's intimate. That's meaningful. And don't underestimate the ripple effect. When someone knows they have this kind of impact on you, it makes them feel more connected, more confident, and more eager to be around you. It creates this positive feedback loop where you both feel good just being in each other's presence. So, next time you're talking to someone you care about, don't hold back. Drop this line and mean it. You might be surprised at how much it brightens their day, and yours, too. A little vulnerability goes a long way, and letting someone know how much their voice lifts you up is about as genuine as it gets. Number 3, you have this way of making everything feel right, even on bad days. There's just something about you. You have this incredible way of making everything feel right, even when the day feels like it's falling apart. Seriously, how do you do that? It's not just about being there, it's about how you're there. Like, your energy, your vibe, it just brings this calming, reassuring presence that makes the chaos around me feel like it's not as big or scary as it seems. It's almost like you're some sort of emotional compass, guiding me back to a place where I feel safe and grounded. And the crazy part? You probably don't even realize you're doing it. That's the magic of it. You're not trying too hard, you're not putting on a show. It's just you being you, and that's what makes it so real. You know how some people say, "It's going to be okay," and it feels kind of empty? Like, yeah, thanks for saying that, but how? With you, it's different. When those words come from you, they hit differently. It's like they come with a kind of unshakable belief that they will actually be okay. And even if I can't see it in the moment, I start to believe it because you believe it. That's powerful. But let's talk about those bad days for a second. You know the ones, when everything feels off, and the weight of the world just won't let up. On those days, people tend to withdraw, right? You could easily pull back, avoid the mess, or say, hey, deal with it yourself. But you don't. Instead, you lean in. And not in some dramatic, over-the-top way. No, you lean in quietly, gently, like a steady hand on my shoulder that says, I've got you. It's in the small things too. The way you listen without interrupting, even when my words are all over the place. The way you somehow know whether I need advice or just silence. And oh, the way you can crack a joke, one of those perfectly timed, light-hearted ones that somehow breaks through the heaviness and reminds me, even for a second, that it's not all bad. That life still has room for laughter, even in the middle of a storm. And you know what else? You don't sugarcoat things. That's part of why this works. You're not the type to just say, oh, everything's fine, when it's clearly not. You acknowledge the hard stuff, and then you remind me, without words sometimes, that hard stuff isn't permanent. It's like you bring this sense of perspective that I just can't find on my own in the middle of the mess. Honestly, it's not just about what you do, it's about what you don't do. You don't judge. You don't make me feel like a burden. You don't brush off my feelings like they're nothing. Instead, you create this space where I feel seen and understood, even when I'm at my worst. And let me tell you, that's rare. It's not something everyone knows how to do, and the fact that you can? That's special. So yeah, even on those days when the clouds are heavy and the sun feels like it's never going to show up again, you're like this warm light cutting through the darkness. And the best part? You don't just make everything feel right, you make me feel like I can handle it. Like I can face whatever's coming, not because it's easy, but because I'm not doing it alone. That's a gift, you know? Not everyone has that kind of presence, that ability to turn bad days into something manageable, something survivable. You do. And it doesn't go unnoticed. Not for a second. Number 4, I feel so lucky to have you in my life. Let's be honest, when you tell someone, I feel so lucky to have you in my life, you're not just throwing words around. You're saying something that's going to linger in their mind long after they've read it. It's not just a statement, it's a vibe, a mood, a full-on heart confession. And honestly, it's one of those things that hits differently because it's all about appreciation, pure, simple, and real. Here's why it works like magic. Everyone, no matter how confident or self-assured, loves to feel valued. And when you drop a message like this, it's not just about flattery. It's about making the other person feel seen and cherished in a way that feels deeply personal. It's like saying, hey, I don't just care about you, I realize how much better my life is because you're in it. Think about it. Life is chaotic, messy, and sometimes just plain overwhelming. But when someone makes you feel like a piece of their puzzle that they didn't even know they were missing, that's powerful. That's rare. When you tell someone how lucky you feel to have them in your world, you're not just acknowledging their presence, you're highlighting their impact. And the beauty of this message? It's versatile. It doesn't scream romance unless you want it to. It can be sweetly platonic, deeply romantic, or even a mix of both. It's like a universal hug in word form, one that says, you matter to me in ways I probably don't even express enough. Now, let's switch gears and dive into what makes this kind of message unforgettable. It's the feeling behind it. Saying you feel lucky isn't just about saying thank you. It's about gratitude on steroids. It's about recognizing that, out of all the people in the world, this one person has a special place in your life that no one else can fill. And that kind of recognition? It's rare. It makes people pause. It makes them feel irreplaceable. But here's the trick, don't just toss it out there like a generic line. Add some depth, some color, some soul to it. Instead of just saying, I feel lucky to have you, consider following it up with why. Let them know what it is about them that makes your life brighter. Maybe it's the way they always seem to know what to say when you're feeling down. Or how they inspire you to look at the world through a different lens. Or maybe it's simply their presence, the fact that they're there, steady and solid, even when life gets messy. This kind of message also has a way of making someone reflect on their own value, which is a gift in itself. Think about it. When you tell someone they make your life better, you're reminding them that they have a unique energy, a certain magic that only they can bring. And in a world where people often question their worth, hearing something like this is nothing short of transformative. And the best part? A message like this doesn't have an expiration date. You can send it out of the blue, during a quiet moment, or after something big happens. It works in any situation because it's timeless. It's not tied to an occasion, it's tied to a feeling. So, when you craft this kind of message, make sure it feels genuine. Don't rush it. Take a moment to think about the person you're writing to and why you feel lucky to have them in your life. And when you send it, know that you're doing more than just sending words. You're creating a moment, a connection that sticks, that resonates, that makes them feel special. And honestly, who wouldn't want to feel that way? Number 5. I feel like the luckiest person when I'm around you. Let's be honest, when someone tells you, I feel like the luckiest person when I'm around you, it's not just a compliment. It's a full-on emotional knockout. It hits different because it's not about some surface-level quality. It's a statement that says, you make my world better just by being in it. And who doesn't want to hear that? Think about it. Luck is such a loaded word. It's tied to serendipity, chance, and those rare moments when everything just clicks. So, when you tell someone they make you feel lucky, you're saying they're not just special. They're a once-in-a-lifetime kind of special. You're letting them know that out of everyone in the world, they stand out in a way that feels almost magical. This message carries weight because it's not about material things or grand gestures. It's about the everyday moments you share. It's about how they make you laugh without trying, how their presence feels like home, or how just being near them makes everything feel a little brighter. When you say this, you're drawing attention to those subtle, beautiful things that often go unnoticed. And that's why it sticks. But let's not sugarcoat it, saying something like this isn't just a random throwaway line. It's a vulnerability flex. You're opening up and letting them see how much they mean to you. That can feel a little scary, right? But it's also what makes the message so powerful. It's raw. It's real. It's not about impressing them, it's about showing them how deeply they've impacted your life. When you drop this line, the timing and delivery matter. Maybe you say it during a quiet moment when it's just the two of you. Or maybe you text it out of nowhere to catch them off guard, in the best way possible. The beauty of this message is that it doesn't need a big setup or a perfect moment. It works because it comes from a genuine place. And don't underestimate how this makes the other person feel. You're giving them a window into your emotions, showing them that they matter in a way that's unique to you. That kind of affirmation is rare, and it's unforgettable. It creates this unspoken bond, a shared understanding that you're both lucky to have found each other. What makes this message even more irresistible is how it flips the script. Instead of focusing on what they do for you or what they bring to the table, you're shining a light on the simple fact that their existence makes you feel fortunate. That's not just flattering, it's deeply affirming. It tells them they're enough just as they are, no extra effort required. And let's be real, everyone wants to feel like they're someone's lucky charm. It taps into this universal desire to be valued, to know that just by being ourselves, we can make someone else's life a little better. When you express that, you're not just making their day, you're leaving a lasting impression. So, the next time you're with someone who makes your heart feel full, don't hold back. Tell them. Say it straight out. I feel like the luckiest person when I'm around you. Watch their face light up. feel the connection between you deepen. It's one of those simple, beautiful truths that can transform a moment, and maybe even a relationship. Sometimes, it's not about finding the perfect words. It's about speaking from the heart. And when you do that, magic happens. Number 6, I've never felt this comfortable being myself around anyone else. There's this feeling I get around you that I can't quite put into words, but I'll try. It's like I can finally let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. You know that weight you carry when you're always trying to say the right thing, act the right way, fit into some invisible mold that the world expects? With you, all of that just vanishes. It's not even something I think about anymore. Around you, I'm just me, and that's enough. And let me tell you, that's not something I've felt before. It's rare, like finding a hidden gem when you weren't even looking for treasure. You have this way of creating a space where being real, messy, imperfect, and sometimes all over the place, feels not just okay but welcomed. It's not about performing or pretending. It's about showing up exactly as I am, no filters, no masks. And the wild part? You don't just accept it, you seem to love it. How is that even possible? When I'm with you, I don't feel like I have to measure up to some imaginary standard. You know what I mean, right? That constant pressure to be better, smarter, funnier, or whatever version of perfect people expect. With you, I can stumble over my words, laugh at my own dumb jokes, or even sit in total silence without it feeling awkward. And that's freeing. It's like you've unlocked this part of me that's been waiting to come out, but never felt safe enough to do so. But it's more than just comfort, it's about trust. I trust you in a way that makes vulnerability feel less terrifying. You don't judge me when I open up about the things I usually keep hidden, those thoughts or quirks that might make someone else raise an eyebrow. You listen, and not just to respond, but to understand. That's rare. You make me feel like the raw, unpolished version of me is not only acceptable but cherished. And you know what else? It's not just the big stuff, it's the little things too. Like how I don't feel the need to second-guess myself around you. You know that annoying voice in your head that questions everything you say or do? Yeah, that voice is quiet when I'm with you. I can let my guard down, speak my mind, and even make mistakes without feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. That's huge. There's also this insane sense of relief in knowing I don't have to be on all the time. You know what I mean? Life is exhausting when you're constantly performing for people, trying to be the version of yourself that you think they want. But with you, there's no performance. I don't have to be the fun one, the strong one, or whatever other role people expect me to play. I can just be, and somehow that's more than enough for you. And here's the thing, it's not just about how you see me. It's about how you make me see myself. When I'm with you, I like who I am. Scratch that, I love who I am. You reflect this version of me that feels so authentic, so true, that I can't help but embrace it. It's like you've helped me find a part of myself I didn't even know I was missing. And that's not just comforting, it's life-changing. So yeah, when I say I've never felt this comfortable being myself around anyone else, I mean it with everything in me. You've given me a gift that's hard to put into words. It's not just comfort, it's a kind of belonging. A feeling that, for once, I don't have to try so hard. With you, I'm not just accepted, I'm celebrated. And honestly, that's the most irresistible feeling in the world. Number 7, you're the reason I believe in serendipity. There's something about the word serendipity that just feels magical, right? It's not about planning, chasing, or forcing things to happen. It's about life surprising you in the best possible way, about moments that feel almost too perfect to be random. And when you tell someone, you're the reason I believe in serendipity, you're not just saying they're special. You're telling them they're the kind of person who makes life feel like it's sprinkled with a little extra stardust. Here's why this message works like a charm. It's more than a compliment. It's a whole mood. It's like saying, I wasn't even looking, but somehow, you showed up, and now I can't imagine my world without you. That kind of sentiment hits deep because it's not about what you've done or what they've done. It's about what the universe, fate, or whatever you believe in decided to put into motion. The thing is, people love the idea of destiny. Even the most logical, no-nonsense person has a soft spot for those moments that feel too perfect to be coincidences. When you tell someone they've made you believe in serendipity, you're telling them they're more than just another person in your life. They're the person. They're the unexpected twist in your story that changed everything in ways you didn't even know were possible. And let's be real, there's something wildly romantic about the idea that they were meant to be there. It's like saying, the moment our paths crossed, everything started making sense in a way it never did before. But it's not just about romance. It's also about connection, about the kind of bond that feels so natural, so effortless, that you can't help but wonder if something bigger is at play. This message also carries an undercurrent of gratitude, though it doesn't scream it outright. When you say someone makes you believe in serendipity, you're quietly thanking them for being exactly who they are, exactly when you needed them, even if you didn't know you needed them. It's like saying, I didn't see this coming, but now that it's here, I wouldn't trade it for anything. But here's where you can really make it shine. Don't stop at the words. Add your own twist. Instead of just saying, you're the reason I believe in serendipity, take it further. Maybe it's their smile that lights up your worst days, or the way their laugh feels like a song you didn't know you needed to hear. Maybe it's how they just get you, without you ever having to explain yourself. Whatever it is, paint the picture. Make it personal. And the beauty of this? It's not about grand gestures or elaborate words. It's about feeling. It's about making them pause and think, wow, I mean that much to someone? Because let's face it, we all want to feel like we're a little bit extraordinary to someone. This kind of message isn't something they'll forget. It's not a text they'll skim and move on from. It's the kind of thing they'll read twice, maybe 3 times, because it's packed with so much more than just words. It's filled with meaning, with emotion, with something that feels bigger than both of you. So, when you send this, don't be afraid to let your emotions show. Be real. Be raw. Let them feel how much their presence has shifted your world. Because when someone makes you believe in serendipity, they're not just another chapter in your story. They're the plot twist you didn't see coming, and the one you'll never stop being grateful for. Number 8. You're my favorite person to talk to, no matter what. Think about the weight of those words for a second. You're my favorite person to talk to. Not just someone I enjoy chatting with, not someone I go to when I'm bored, my favorite. It's the kind of compliment that goes deeper than surface-level admiration. It's saying, you're my go-to. You're the one I want to share my thoughts, my feelings, my everything with. That's huge. What makes this message so irresistible is how personal it feels. It's not about looks, achievements, or even shared experiences. It's about connection. When you tell someone they're your favorite person to talk to, you're acknowledging how their presence makes your world better. And not just better, easier, lighter, more meaningful. It's like saying, of all the people I could talk to, you're the one who really gets me. And let's be real. Life throws all kinds of stuff at us, good, bad, and everything in between. There's nothing like having that one person you can turn to no matter what. Whether it's a random thought, a deep fear, or just a silly joke that popped into your head, they're the person you know will actually listen. And when you tell them this, you're giving them a front row seat to your life, showing them they're the MVP of your inner world. The magic here lies in its simplicity. You're my favorite person to talk to isn't some overly polished line. It's raw, unfiltered, and completely from the heart. That's why it lands so well. It's not trying to impress, it's just the truth. People can sense when you're being genuine, and this kind of statement radiates authenticity. But what makes this message truly stick is the no matter what part. That's where the game changes. It's not just about talking when things are fun or easy. It's about being there when things get messy, confusing, or downright tough. You're telling them, I don't just love talking to you when the sun's shining, I love talking to you when it's pouring rain, too. That level of loyalty and emotional availability is rare, and when you express it, it hits deep. Let's talk about how this works in practice. Maybe you drop this line during a quiet moment, like when you're just sitting together, enjoying each other's company. Or maybe you text it out of nowhere to remind them how much they mean to you. Either way, the impact is the same. They'll feel seen, valued, and irreplaceable. And honestly, who doesn't want to feel that way? The beauty of this message is its versatility. It works for romantic relationships, friendships, even family bonds. It's not about what the other person does or says, it's about who they are and how they make you feel. You're not just saying, I like talking to you. You're saying, you're the best at making me feel understood, supported, and heard. That's powerful. Here's another thing. When you tell someone they're your favorite person to talk to, it opens the door for deeper connection. It makes them feel safe to share their thoughts, too. It's like a subtle way of saying, I trust you with my words and my feelings, and I hope you trust me with yours. That kind of openness can transform a relationship from good to extraordinary. So, don't hold back. Tell them. Say it when they least expect it, when it's just an ordinary day and you're having an ordinary conversation. Because that's the beauty of this message, it thrives in the everyday moments, turning the mundane into something meaningful. At the end of the day, we all want to feel like we're someone's favorite. And when you tell someone they're your favorite person to talk to, you're giving them that gift. A gift of love, connection, and unshakable trust. And trust me, they'll never forget it. Number 9, I've never felt this comfortable being myself around anyone else. You know what's crazy? Being with you feels like coming home, like finding a place where I can finally just be. And I mean really be. No overthinking. No second guessing. No wondering if I'm saying the right thing or acting the right way. It's like all the walls I didn't even realize I'd built come crashing down the moment I'm around you. That's not something I've ever experienced before, and honestly, it's kind of magical. I think what makes it so special is how effortless it feels. I don't have to try. I don't have to perform. There's no need to impress you with some version of myself that doesn't even feel real. I'm not on stage, hoping for applause or validation. I'm just me, flaws and all, and somehow, that's enough. No, scratch that, it's more than enough for you. And that's such a rare thing. It's wild how being myself with you doesn't feel risky. You know how it is with most people, there's always that tiny voice in the back of your mind whispering, what if they don't get it? What if they think I'm weird? What if they walk away? But with you, that voice is silent. Completely gone. It's like my soul knows yours won't judge, won't criticize, won't hold me to some impossible standard. You make me feel safe in a way I didn't even know I needed. And it's not just about safety, it's about freedom. Freedom to laugh too loud, to mess up, to say the wrong thing and know it's not the end of the world. Freedom to share the parts of myself I usually keep hidden, the goofy, awkward, slightly overthinking parts, and not feel like I have to apologize for them. That freedom? It's priceless. You know what else? You don't just tolerate the real me, you love it. That's the thing that gets me every time. It's like you see all the bits and pieces of who I am, the shiny parts and the not so shiny parts, and you just embrace it all. No hesitation. No hesitation. And because of that, I feel more like myself than I ever have before. It's like you've unlocked this side of me that's been waiting in the wings, waiting for someone to say, hey, it's okay to step into the spotlight just as you are. It's funny because people talk about comfort like it's this small, quiet thing. But the kind of comfort I feel with you? It's huge. It's life-changing. It's not just sitting on a couch in sweatpants kind of comfort, though, let's be real, that's great too. It's more like a deep exhale after holding your breath for way too long. It's the relief of knowing I don't have to carry the weight of expectations anymore because, with you, there aren't any. Just acceptance. Just love. Just realness. And let's not forget the trust. Because that's where it all starts, right? You've created this space where I can let my guard down, where vulnerability isn't a risk, it's a connection. And in that connection, I've found a version of myself I really, truly like. Maybe even love. That's the gift you've given me, without even trying. So when I say I've never felt this comfortable being myself around anyone else, I mean it with every fiber of my being. It's not just a compliment, it's the truth. You've made me feel seen, heard, and understood in a way that's completely unforgettable. And that's something no one can resist. Number 10, you've added colors to my life I didn't even know existed. When you tell someone, you've added colors to my life I didn't even know existed, you're not just complimenting them, you're painting a picture. It's not about the surface level "you're great" kind of message. This is deeper. It's like saying, you've taken the grayscale parts of my world and turned them into something vibrant, alive, and completely new. And honestly, who wouldn't want to hear that? This line works because it's not just about appreciation, it's about transformation. It's about acknowledging that this person has changed the way you see the world. They didn't just walk into your life, they brought an entire palette of emotions, experiences, and perspectives you didn't even realize you were missing. It's the ultimate way of saying, you've made everything feel more alive, more beautiful, more everything. But let's break this down. Life can feel monotonous sometimes, like you're just going through the motions, stuck in the same rhythm. Then someone comes along, and suddenly, things you never noticed before stand out. You start seeing beauty in the ordinary, magic in the mundane. It's like they flipped a switch and flooded your world with light and color. It's not just that they're special, it's that they make everything else feel special too. And here's the thing, this message doesn't just land, it lingers. It makes the other person feel like they're not just a part of your life, but the spark that makes it better. It's a way of saying, you're not just someone I care about, you're someone who's completely changed my perspective. That kind of sentiment is unforgettable. What makes this message so powerful is the imagery. Think about it, colors you didn't even know existed. That's saying their impact is beyond what words can fully capture. It's like you're trying to describe a feeling so profound that it can only be compared to discovering an entirely new spectrum of light. That's next level meaningful. But don't stop at the surface. If you're going to use this message, make it personal. Follow it up with the why. Is it the way they make you laugh when you didn't even think you could? Is it their ability to turn an ordinary day into something extraordinary just by being there? Maybe it's how they bring out a side of you that you didn't even know existed, a side that's braver, kinder, more alive. Whatever it is, let them know. The more specific you get, the more impactful the message becomes. Another reason this hits so hard is because it's not something you say lightly. You're not just throwing out compliments for the sake of it. You're telling them they've fundamentally changed the way you experience life. That's huge. That's unforgettable. And the best part? It's the kind of message that works in so many different types of relationships. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a best friend, a mentor, anyone who's shifted your perspective and made your world richer. The beauty of this message is also in its timelessness. You can send it anytime, after a deep conversation, a shared moment, or even just out of the blue. The element of surprise makes it even more powerful because they're not expecting it. Imagine them reading those words and feeling like they've brought something irreplaceable into your life. That's how you create a connection that sticks. So when you tell someone, "You've added colors to my life I didn't even know existed," don't just let it be words on a screen. Let it mean something. Let it reflect the way they've shifted your world, even in the smallest ways. Because when someone makes you see life differently, they deserve to know just how much they matter. Number 11, I'd choose you in every lifetime, without hesitation. There's something about this statement that stops you in your tracks, right? I'd choose you in every lifetime. It's not just romantic, it's poetic, almost otherworldly. It's a way of saying, out of all the possibilities, all the what-ifs, all the people I could have met, you'd still be the one. And the best part? There's zero hesitation in it. It's like declaring, "You're not just my choice now, you'd be my choice forever and always." This kind of message hits different because it's not tied to the here and now. It's not about what's happening in this moment or even this lifetime. It's about something much bigger, this deep, soul-level connection that feels like it could transcend time itself. By saying this, you're telling someone, "You're not just important to me, you're essential." Think about the emotional punch this message carries. It's not just flattery or a passing compliment. It's rooted in something deeper. When you tell someone you'd choose them in every lifetime, you're not just expressing love, you're affirming that they are your person. No doubts. No second guesses. That's a powerful thing to hear, and it sticks. But what makes this line so irresistible isn't just the sentiment behind it, it's the way it creates a sense of permanence. Life can be messy and unpredictable, and relationships come with their fair share of challenges. But when you tell someone, "I'd choose you, no matter what," you're cutting through all that noise. You're saying, "I see you, flaws and all, and you're still my choice, always." That kind of reassurance is rare, and it's unforgettable. Now, let's get into how this could land in a conversation. Maybe you're having one of those quiet, intimate moments where everything feels right. Or maybe you say it out of nowhere, catching them completely off guard. Either way, it feels raw and real because it's not something people hear every day. It's a statement that makes them pause, take it in, and realize how much they mean to you. And the beauty of this message? It's not just about love in the traditional sense. It's about admiration, respect, and a deep appreciation for who they are. You're telling them that, in any scenario, in any version of reality, they'd be your choice. You're saying, "You're the kind of person I'd always want to find, no matter where or when." That kind of sentiment hits straight to the heart. This message also taps into something almost spiritual. The idea of lifetimes, of existing in different versions of reality, gives it this timeless quality. It's not just about saying, "I love you." It's about saying, "You're a part of me. You're my forever." That's why it resonates so deeply. It feels bigger than the moment, bigger than words. But don't underestimate the subtle power of how you say it. The delivery can make all the difference. Maybe you whisper it during a meaningful moment, or you write it down in a note they'll find later. However you choose to share it, the impact will be the same. They'll feel cherished, irreplaceable, and deeply loved. At its core, this message is about connection. It's about telling someone, "I see you for everything you are, and I wouldn't want anyone else." That kind of validation is rare. It's the kind of thing people carry with them for a long time because it's not just about how you feel, it's about who they are to you. So, don't hold back. Say it. Write it. Shout it if you feel like it. Let them know they're not just your choice now, they're your choice in every lifetime. Because when you express something that powerful, it doesn't just make their day, it changes everything. Number 12, something about you just feels like home to me. You ever meet someone and feel this weird, unshakable sense of familiarity? Like, how do you already feel like a part of me when I've only just met you? That's what it's like with you. Something about you just feels like home, but not in the way people throw the word around. No, it's deeper than that. It's not about a place or a thing, it's a feeling, a connection, like my soul recognizes yours. It's hard to explain, but it's like being wrapped in the softest, warmest blanket after a long, cold day. Like, no matter what kind of chaos the world throws at me, when I'm with you, all of it fades into the background. You're not just comfort, you're my calm in the storm. And it's not just the big, obvious stuff. It's in the little things too. The way you listen. The way your energy matches mine without me having to say a word. It's the unspoken stuff that makes it feel so real, so right. And you know what? It's not even about perfection. You don't have to do anything grand to make me feel this way. It's just you. The way you look at me like I matter. The way you're present, fully there, in a way that makes me forget about all the noise in my head. It's like you've carved out this space where I can just exist, no pressure, no expectations. That's rare, you know? And I don't take it lightly. What's wild is how natural it all feels. There's no awkwardness, no what do I say, or how do I act. It's like my guard just melts away when I'm around you. You don't even have to ask me to let it down, it just happens. And that's huge for me. You make vulnerability feel easy. Almost effortless. It's like I don't have to try with you. I can just be. And let's be real, how often does that happen? Not often enough, I'll tell you that much. It's not just about comfort, though. It's about belonging. That's what makes it feel like home. It's this unspoken reassurance that no matter what I bring to the table, good, bad, or somewhere in between, you're still there. And you're not just there in the passive sense. You're fully present, fully engaged, making me feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. That kind of connection? It's priceless. Sometimes, I think about how much weight we all carry every day. The stress, the expectations, the endless juggling of life's responsibilities, it's a lot. But with you, it's like someone finally says, hey, you can put that down for a while. You give me permission to breathe, to exhale, to let go. And that's what home should feel like, right? A place where the world's heaviness doesn't touch you, where you can just be yourself without fear or judgment. And the trust, don't even get me started on that. That's the foundation of it all. Because home isn't just about comfort, it's about knowing you're safe. And you give me that safety in spades. It's not just what you say, but how you say it. How you show up consistently, without me having to ask. How you somehow know what I need without me spelling it out. It's like you just get it. You get me. So yeah, when I say something about you feels like home, I mean it in every possible way. It's not just a line, it's the truth. You're my anchor, my safe place, my reminder that even in the chaos of life, there's still this incredible feeling of peace waiting for me when I'm with you. And that's something I'll never take for granted. In the next section, let's go over some signs to ensure someone is totally being fake to you. Number 1, excessive flattery. Let's talk about flattery, specifically the kind that doesn't just feel good but feels too good. You know what I mean. Someone showers you with compliments, and it's not just one or two nice things, it's an endless waterfall of praise. At first, it might feel amazing. Who doesn't like being told they're awesome? But if you start to feel like the compliments are coming in hot and heavy, like they've turned on a fire hose of admiration, it might be time to step back and question what's really going on. Here's the thing about excessive flattery, it's often more about the flatterer than the flattered. When someone goes overboard with praise, they're usually not just being kind. They might be trying to manipulate you, soften you up, or get on your good side for reasons that have nothing to do with genuine admiration. Think of it like a sugar rush, sweet in the moment but not exactly nourishing. The tricky part is spotting it, right? Because flattery can be so sneaky. Sometimes it's blatant, like when someone gushes over your every word or decision. But other times, it's more subtle, wrapped up in casual remarks that seem harmless on the surface. "You're just so smart, I don't know how you do it," or "Wow, I've never met anyone as talented as you." Sure, those statements might be true, but when they're repeated too often or seem out of proportion to the situation, your inner radar should start buzzing. And let's talk about the feeling it gives you. Excessive flattery can leave you with this strange mix of emotions. At first, it might feel good, your ego gets a little boost, but then there's this underlying awkwardness. It's like eating a dessert that's too sweet, it stops being enjoyable after a while. That's your intuition whispering, something's not adding up here. Now, why do people do this? Sometimes it's insecurity. They might think flattery is the only way to win your approval. Other times, it's more calculated, like they're trying to butter you up to get something in return. Maybe they're angling for a favor, trying to cover up their mistakes, or just seeking to control how you perceive them. Whatever the reason, it's not about you, it's about their agenda. So, how do you deal with it? First, listen to your gut. If the compliments feel over the top or unearned, don't ignore that uneasy feeling. Next, test the waters. Shift the focus back to them and see how they react. People who use flattery as a tool often struggle when the spotlight isn't on you. And lastly, don't let it cloud your judgment. Just because someone says you're amazing doesn't mean you owe them anything. Flattery, in moderation, is nice. It's like seasoning, it enhances things when used sparingly. But when it's overdone, it stops being genuine and starts feeling fake. And no one needs that kind of artificial sweetness in their life. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and don't let excessive flattery pull the wool over your eyes. Number 2, inconsistent behavior. Let's talk about inconsistent behavior, that tricky little giveaway when someone's actions just don't line up with their words. It's like trying to piece together a puzzle where none of the pieces seem to fit. One moment, they're all sunshine and smiles, showering you with praise or warmth, and the next, they're distant, cold, or even indifferent. It leaves you scratching your head, wondering, what just happened? Did I do something wrong? Spoiler alert, it's probably not you, it's them. When people are being fake, their behavior tends to swing like a pendulum. They'll say one thing but do the complete opposite, or they'll act friendly in one setting and turn aloof the minute the context changes. Maybe when they're with you, they're overly complimentary, but in a group, they barely acknowledge your presence. That kind of inconsistency can feel jarring because humans naturally crave congruence in their relationships. We want to believe that what someone shows us is authentic. When it's not, we sense it, even if we can't always articulate it. Here's the thing, people who aren't genuine struggle to maintain consistency because they're not rooted in truth. Their facade is a performance, and performances are exhausting to sustain. Eventually, cracks show. It's like watching someone try to balance too many plates in the air. Sooner or later, a plate is going to drop. And when it does, you start to see glimpses of their true intentions. Maybe they're hiding insecurity, trying to manipulate you, or simply putting on an act because they think it's what you want to see. Whatever the case, their inconsistency is a sign that their connection with you isn't built on something real. What makes this so hard to deal with is how confusing it can be. One day, they're your biggest fan, and the next, they're distant or even dismissive. It messes with your perception and can make you second-guess yourself. But here's a tip, trust your gut. If their behavior feels off or doesn't match what they're saying, don't ignore that little voice in your head. It's trying to tell you something. And let's not forget, consistent behavior is the bedrock of trust. When someone shows up the same way over time, it builds a sense of safety and reliability. Inconsistency, on the other hand, creates unease. It's like trying to walk on shifting sand. You never quite know where you stand. Genuine people don't leave you questioning. They're steady. Predictable in a good way. So, when you notice someone acting one way today and a completely different way tomorrow, take a step back. Don't rush to justify their behavior or give them the benefit of the doubt right away. Observe. Patterns don't lie, and over time, you'll see whether their actions align with their words, or if they're just playing a part. And remember, it's not your job to fix or figure them out. Stay grounded in your truth, and let their inconsistency speak for itself. Number 3, talking behind your back. Let's be real, this one stings. Few things feel as gut-wrenching as realizing that someone who smiles to your face is running their mouth behind your back. It's like they're wearing a mask, pretending to be all buddy-buddy while sharpening their knives in private. And the worst part? You might not even know it's happening until someone lets it slip, or you notice the strange way others start treating you. Yeah, it's messy. Here's the thing, when someone is talking about you behind your back, it's often less about you and more about them. They're projecting their insecurities, seeking validation from others, or just trying to stir the pot for their own entertainment. It's not flattering, but it's pretty common. Why? Because gossip gives people a weird kind of power. It makes them feel in the know, like they've got the inside scoop. But let's be clear, this doesn't make them smart or strong. It just makes them small. How do you spot it, though? Sometimes it's subtle. Maybe someone who used to be warm and engaging suddenly becomes distant, avoiding eye contact or giving you those tight, forced smiles that scream, "I know something you don't." Or maybe you hear whispers die out the second you walk into a room. That awkward silence? Yeah, that's a red flag. And then there are the accidental slips, where someone says, "Oh, I didn't mean to bring that up," but you know they totally did. So, what's the game plan when you suspect this is happening? First, don't lose your cool. It's easy to want to confront the person immediately or launch into defensive mode, but that often backfires. Instead, watch and listen. People who gossip tend to reveal themselves over time because they can't resist the urge to talk. Their need for attention is their Achilles heel. Let them dig their own grave, metaphorically speaking. Now, here's where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and philosopher, had this to say: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Translation: you can't control what people say behind your back, but you can control how much it affects you. Focus on your actions, your integrity, your character. Let your life speak louder than their words. Also, don't be quick to cut people off at the first sign of shady behavior. Sometimes, what seems like gossip isn't malicious, it's just thoughtless. Humans are flawed, and we all slip up. But if the pattern is clear and the intent is harmful, then it's time to rethink that relationship. You don't need people in your life who bring toxic energy, even if they're pretending to be your biggest cheerleaders. At the end of the day, talking behind someone's back is a sign of weakness, not strength. It reflects poorly on the person doing it, not the one being talked about. So, if you ever find yourself the target of gossip, remember this: their words might sting, but they can't define you. You've got bigger things to focus on, like living a life so authentic and powerful that their pettiness becomes nothing more than background noise. Number 4, lack of genuine interest in your life. Ever had a conversation that felt more like a performance? Like you're on stage, talking about your life, your passions, your struggles, and the other person is just sitting there, nodding at the right moments, throwing in a wow or "that's crazy" here and there? On the surface, it might seem like they're listening. But if you dig a little deeper, something feels off. You start to notice that they're not really asking follow-up questions. They're not genuinely curious. They're just going through the motions. When someone is being fake with you, one of the biggest giveaways is their lack of interest in you. And I don't mean the superficial stuff, like what you had for lunch or your weekend plans. I'm talking about the things that make you tick. Your dreams. Your fears. The stuff that matters. If they never seem to dive below the surface, it's a red flag. Here's the thing, real interest comes with effort. It's when someone asks how you're doing and actually wants to know the answer. It's when they remember that thing you mentioned weeks ago and follow up about it later. Fake interest, on the other hand, is shallow. It's all about appearances. They might ask, "How are you?" but they don't really care. It's a checkbox, a social script they're following. And you can usually tell, because their eyes glaze over, or they're already steering the conversation back to themselves. Sometimes, this fake interest shows up in the way they handle your achievements or struggles. Let's say you're sharing something you're proud of, something that lights you up. If the other person brushes it off or gives you a generic "that's cool," it stings. And it's not about needing validation, it's about wanting a real connection. The same goes for tough times. If someone is quick to offer empty platitudes or change the subject when you open up, they're not showing real interest, they're just avoiding depth. Now, why do people act this way? It could be laziness. Genuine curiosity takes effort, and not everyone wants to invest that energy. Or maybe they're so wrapped up in their own world that they don't have the capacity to care about yours. In some cases, it's even intentional. They're keeping things shallow because they're not truly invested in the relationship. So, how do you deal with it? Start by noticing the patterns. Are they only present when it benefits them? Do they consistently avoid meaningful conversations? If so, you might need to reevaluate how much space they deserve in your life. You don't have to cut them off completely, but maybe stop pouring so much of your time and energy into a connection that isn't mutual. At the end of the day, genuine relationships are built on mutual care and curiosity. If someone isn't interested in knowing the real you, don't waste time bending over backward to make them care. Save your energy for people who lean in, who listen, who actually see you. Life's too short to settle for shallow connections. Number 5, only showing up when they need something. You know that person who only seems to pop into your life when they need something? Yeah, that's a red flag waving right in your face. It's the kind of behavior that leaves you feeling like a convenience rather than a connection. They'll hit you up with a cheerful "Hey, how's it going?" or "Long time no talk," but let's be real, you already know what's coming next. A favor. A request. A need. It's never just because they miss you or genuinely care about how you're doing. This type of interaction can feel pretty hollow because, deep down, you sense their ulterior motive. It's not about building a relationship, it's transactional. And, let's face it, that sucks. You might even find yourself questioning whether you're being too harsh or reading into things too much. But think about it, when someone only reaches out when they want something, their actions speak volumes. It's like they've got you on speed dial for emergencies, but when the storm clears, they disappear into the ether until the next time they need a hand. Now, don't confuse this with someone going through a tough time. Everyone needs support now and then, and true friends will lean on each other in hard moments. But there's a huge difference between leaning and leeching. When someone's being fake, their neediness isn't reciprocal. You'll notice they're happy to take but rarely offer anything back. Whether it's emotional support, time, or energy, you'll end up feeling drained because the relationship is all give on your end and all take on theirs. Another clue? These interactions often come packaged with flattery or charm. Suddenly, they're super interested in your life or showering you with compliments. At first, it might feel good. Who doesn't like a little extra attention? But if you pay close attention, you'll see it's just a setup. They're buttering you up before they make their big ask. The moment they get what they came for, the compliments dry up, and they're gone faster than you can say, "Hey, what about me?" And let's not forget the guilt trips. If you don't immediately jump to help, they might pull out the "I thought we were close" card or make you feel bad for saying no. It's all part of the manipulation, an attempt to keep you in their orbit while they take. But relationships built on manipulation aren't relationships at all, they're just one-sided arrangements where you're left carrying the weight. So, how do you deal with this? First, recognize the pattern. If someone only shows up when they need something and disappears when the tables are turned, that's not friendship, it's freeloading. Set boundaries. It's okay to say no without feeling guilty. And remember, real connections aren't based on what you can do for someone, they're built on mutual care, respect, and effort. If someone can't show up for you the same way you show up for them, let them drift away. You're better off saving your energy for people who genuinely value your presence, not just your help. Number 6, forcing smiles or laughter. You know that weird, slightly uncomfortable feeling you get when someone laughs a little too hard at a joke that wasn't even that funny? Or when their smile looks like it was drawn on with a marker, stiff and awkward? That's the kind of fake energy we're talking about here. A forced smile or an over-the-top laugh isn't just a harmless quirk, it's often a dead giveaway that someone's not being real with you. Here's the deal, genuine emotions, whether it's a laugh, a smile, or even just a look of joy, are contagious. You can feel when they're real. They light up someone's face in a way that feels warm and effortless. But when it's fake, oh boy, it's like staring at bad acting in a soap opera. Their face might move the right way, but the eyes? The eyes always betray the truth. A forced smile doesn't reach the eyes, it just kind of hangs there, awkward and hollow. And then there's the laughter. Let's not even get started on that strained, over-the-top chuckle people give when they're trying too hard. It's like they're auditioning for a role they didn't prepare for. The laugh comes out a little too loud or at the wrong moment, and suddenly, you're left wondering, are they actually enjoying this, or are they just pretending to keep the peace? Why do people do this, though? Well, sometimes it's about trying to fit in. Maybe they feel pressure to seem polite, agreeable, or likable, and so they plaster on a fake grin to avoid rocking the boat. Other times, it's more manipulative, they're trying to mask how they really feel, whether that's disinterest, annoyance, or even disdain. Either way, it's not a great sign. Genuine connections aren't built on forced smiles and phony laughs. They're built on authenticity, even if that means awkward silence or admitting, "I didn't get the joke." Spotting this kind of fakery can be tricky, though. A forced smile or laugh might only last a second, but if you pay attention, it's pretty obvious. Maybe their expression drops the second they think no one's watching, or their laugh sounds so rehearsed it could win an award for most unnatural sound. Another clue? Timing. If someone is laughing a beat too late or smiling at something that wasn't even remotely smile-worthy, you've probably got yourself a faker. So, how do you deal with it? First, don't take it personally. Sometimes people fake a smile because they don't know how to handle the situation, not because they have something against you. That being said, if this becomes a pattern, if someone's always putting on this forced act around you, it might be worth taking a step back and asking yourself why. Are they uncomfortable being themselves with you? Are they trying to manipulate the situation? Or are they just not the kind of person who values honesty in relationships? Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, and other people's fake smiles? Totally out of your control. What you can do is stay true to yourself. Be real, even if it's a little messy or awkward. The people who matter, the ones who genuinely care about you, will appreciate your authenticity and reflect it back. And those who don't? Well, let them keep practicing their fake grins. It's exhausting pretending all the time, and eventually, the mask always slips. Number 7. Avoiding deeper conversations. Have you ever tried to take a conversation beyond the surface level, only to feel like you're hitting an invisible wall? It's like you're throwing the ball, but they're just letting it drop instead of tossing it back. When someone avoids deeper conversations, it's one of the clearest signs they're not being authentic with you. It feels strange, doesn't it? Almost like they're keeping a part of themselves locked away, or maybe they're just not interested in exploring what's behind your words, either. Shallow talk can only go so far. It's the safe zone, light topics, quick laughs, and maybe a comment or two about the weather or your favorite show. And sure, that's fine for casual acquaintances or small talk at a party. But if someone who's supposed to matter in your life stays stuck there, never diving deeper, it can leave you feeling hollow. It's like trying to drink from an empty cup, unsatisfying and unfulfilling. What makes it so tricky to spot is how subtle it can be. They might laugh at your jokes, respond to your stories, and even seem engaged at first glance. But pay attention. Are they steering away from anything that feels real? Do they shut down or change the subject when emotions enter the picture? Maybe they keep things vague, never really offering personal insights or thoughts of their own. These are signs of someone who's not willing, or not able, to connect on a deeper level. Now, why does this happen? Sometimes it's about fear. Deep conversations can feel vulnerable, exposing parts of yourself that aren't polished or perfect. And let's face it, vulnerability isn't easy for everyone. For some people, it's downright terrifying. Other times, it's a lack of interest. They may not care enough to invest emotionally in you or the conversation. Ouch, right? But it's better to know than to keep pouring your energy into something one-sided. And then there's the performative side of it. Some people are masters of appearing engaged without ever truly being engaged. They'll throw in a comment here or there, just enough to keep the conversation flowing, but they're not actually there with you. It's like talking to someone who's physically present but emotionally checked out. Frustrating doesn't even begin to cover it. So, how do you handle this? Start by testing the waters. Share something a little deeper, an idea, a belief, or even just how you're really feeling that day. Watch how they respond. Do they engage? Or do they retreat to their comfort zone? If it's the latter, don't take it personally. It's not a reflection of your worth, but of their capacity, or willingness, to connect. Here's the bottom line: real relationships thrive on depth. They grow when people are willing to explore the messy, complicated, meaningful parts of life together. If someone avoids those conversations, it might be time to ask yourself how much of your energy they really deserve. Because let's face it, life's too short for surface-level connections. Dive deep or move on. Number 8. Pretending to agree with everything you say. It's strange, isn't it? When someone acts like they're on your side about everything, no matter how outlandish or ridiculous your opinions might be. You say something, and it's like they've got a magic wand that makes them instantly agree with it. It feels a bit too perfect, too convenient. Almost like they're trying way too hard to fit in or make you feel good about yourself. That kind of behavior, when someone always nods along with everything you say, is often a big OL warning sign that they're not being real with you. At first, it might seem flattering. Who doesn't want someone who always agrees with their ideas? It feels like you've found a friend who gets you, right? But here's the thing: real relationships aren't built on endless affirmation. They're built on genuine exchange and sometimes even disagreement. In fact, healthy debates can open up doors to deeper understanding. But when someone just nods and smiles every time you speak, it's almost like they're more interested in keeping the peace than actually engaging with you. This kind of behavior screams inauthenticity. It's like they're trying to be the person they think you want them to be, instead of being themselves. They might think that agreeing with everything you say will make them more likable, or maybe they're too afraid to rock the boat. Either way, it's a sign that they're not comfortable expressing their true thoughts, and they're relying on shallow agreement to stay in your good books. One of the worst things about this is that it can leave you questioning your own judgment. If everyone around you is constantly telling you how amazing your ideas are, even when you know they might not be, it can make you feel invincible in your beliefs. But that's not real validation, it's just echoing. You're not getting feedback that helps you grow or see things from another perspective. You're just being fed a steady stream of yes men, or yes women, and that's a dangerous place to be. And let's be clear, there's a difference between someone being polite and someone being fake. It's one thing to nod and smile during a conversation, but it's another to never challenge a single thought you have. It's like they're hiding their true opinions behind a wall of yes, I totally agree with that, all the time. And eventually, you start to wonder, do they actually think anything for themselves? Here's the thing, if someone can't be honest with you about their thoughts, how can you trust anything else they say? Real friendship, real connection, is about the space to disagree, challenge each other, and grow together. If someone's constantly agreeing with you, it might be time to step back and ask, are they really with you? Or are they just along for the ride, pretending because they're too scared to be themselves? So, the next time someone is nodding along to everything you say, take a moment to dig deeper. Are they adding value to the conversation, or are they just echoing your thoughts back at you? Genuine people don't just agree for the sake of agreeing. They bring new perspectives, ask tough questions, and help you think critically. Anything less than that? It's probably just another form of fakeness you don't need in your life. Number 9. Competing instead of collaborating. You ever notice how some people act like every interaction is a battle? Like, they can't just enjoy a conversation, or work on a project, without turning it into some weird contest where the only goal is to come out on top. It's exhausting. Instead of collaborating, they're constantly measuring, comparing, and competing. It's as if they believe that for them to win, someone else has to lose. And let's be honest, that kind of energy can be downright draining. The thing about people who are all about competition over collaboration is that they're usually playing from a place of insecurity. They don't see life as a journey of growth, learning, and sharing. Instead, they see it as a series of games where there's always a winner and a loser. If you succeed, they feel like it somehow diminishes their own worth. If you make a mistake, they're there to jump on it like it's a golden opportunity to make themselves look better. It's a constant cycle of one-upmanship that never really leads anywhere meaningful. But here's the kicker, collaboration isn't just about working together to achieve a common goal, it's about lifting each other up, sharing ideas, and creating something bigger than what any one person could do alone. It's about the energy that flows between people when they're in sync, when everyone's contributing their unique strengths. When you're collaborating, there's no me versus you. There's only we. But with the competitive mindset, it's all about proving who's got the bigger idea, the better plan, or the smarter approach. Now, you might be thinking, but isn't a little competition good? Doesn't it push you to do better? Well, sure. A healthy sense of competition can fuel motivation and push people to reach higher, but that's not what we're talking about here. The kind of competition we're discussing is toxic. It's about constantly needing to be better than others, constantly measuring your worth by how you stack up against someone else. It's a hamster wheel that goes nowhere, leaving you feeling exhausted and unsatisfied. When you're in a situation where someone is competing instead of collaborating, it's easy to start questioning yourself. You might find yourself second-guessing your ideas, or feeling like your contributions aren't valued. That's exactly the kind of dynamic a competitive person thrives on. They want to knock you off balance so they can feel superior. But that's where the beauty of Stoic philosophy comes in. As Marcus Aurelius put it, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Instead of getting caught up in their game, focus on what you can control: your actions, your mindset, and your response. Don't get sucked into their race. Instead, offer your ideas openly, listen to theirs, and find ways to work together. Collaborate, and watch how much more powerful the result becomes. Because collaboration isn't just about splitting up tasks, it's about combining strengths, respecting differences, and creating something richer than what any of you could have come up with on your own. Here's the thing: when you stop competing and start collaborating, you stop wasting energy on pointless comparison. You free yourself to grow without needing to be better than someone else. You're not in a race anymore, you're in a partnership. And that's where true success, fulfillment, and lasting relationships thrive. Number 10. Frequent lies or exaggerations. There's something unsettling about someone who lies constantly, especially when it's not even for any clear reason. It's not just the occasional white lie to spare feelings, but a pattern of stretching the truth, twisting reality, or making up stories out of thin air. And here's the thing: when you're on the receiving end of this, it's like being caught in a web of confusion. You start to wonder if anything they say is real, and that doubt, it starts to gnaw at you, making you question every word they speak. You've probably encountered someone who exaggerates every little thing about their life: how much they've accomplished, how wild their weekend was, or how many people they know. It's not just about boosting their image either. They do it so often that it almost becomes second nature. Over time, you can start to tell the difference between genuine enthusiasm and a stretch of the truth. Sure, embellishment is normal here and there. But when it happens repeatedly, it's like a red flag waving in the wind, signaling that something deeper is going on. It's not just the fabrications that get under your skin, it's the inconsistency. One minute they're telling you one thing, and the next, it's a completely different story. If you catch them in a lie and they get defensive, you know the game they're playing. They might try to cover it up, twist the narrative, or even act like you're the one who's mistaken. They'll try to convince you that you misunderstood, or worse, that you're overreacting. This backpedaling? It's a classic sign that they don't respect the truth, or you enough to be honest with you. But why do people lie like this? There's a mix of reasons. For some, it's insecurity. They feel like they have to inflate their reality to fit into a certain mold or impress others. For others, it's manipulation. They lie to control how people see them or to get something out of the relationship, whether it's admiration, sympathy, or even favors. The more they lie, the harder it becomes for them to keep track of what's true and what's not. But the deeper you get into the web, the more you start to see the cracks in their stories, and soon, it's hard to believe anything they say. Now, how do you deal with this? It's tempting to just call them out, but it's not always that simple. Sometimes, their lies are so deeply woven into their persona that confronting them head-on might only lead to more manipulation or gaslighting. Instead, you've got to stay grounded. Trust your instincts and don't let their words pull you into their distorted version of reality. Pay attention to patterns, how often the truth gets bent, and how they react when you start questioning them. Often, the truth comes out not in the words, but in their behavior when they feel cornered. In the end, people who constantly lie and exaggerate aren't just being dishonest with you, they're lying to themselves too. They're so wrapped up in creating a reality that doesn't exist that they lose touch with what's real. And if they can't be truthful with themselves, they definitely won't be truthful with you. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. Once that's eroded, it's hard to rebuild. So, take a step back. If someone's lies start to pile up, it might be time to ask yourself how much of your energy you want to invest in a relationship built on a shaky foundation. Number 11. Being overly polite without sincerity. We've all been there. Someone's being just a little too nice. It's the kind of politeness that feels more like a mask than a genuine gesture. Every word they say, every smile they flash, it all seems a bit too much. And while on the surface, it seems like they're just being courteous, something doesn't sit right. The words are there, but the heart behind them? Not so much. It's almost like they're reading from a script, performing the role of nice person without actually being nice. And that's the thing about excessive politeness, it can be a dead giveaway that something's off. It's easy to confuse this kind of behavior with kindness, but the difference lies in how it makes you feel. When someone's polite because they actually care, it's warm. It's authentic. You can feel the sincerity, even in the smallest gestures. But when someone's politeness feels forced, it's like an act. It's surface level and never quite reaches the core. The pleasantries are there, but there's no substance behind them. It's the kind of politeness that's used to maintain distance, to keep things superficial. And that's exactly the problem, it's a barrier, not a bridge. You might catch yourself wondering, why are they being so nice? You haven't done anything to deserve it, and it's not like they've earned your trust yet. Maybe it's their way of keeping things pleasant, of never stepping on anyone's toes. But at some point, you'll notice the lack of depth in their words. It's like they're trying to manage the interaction, to keep things smooth and easy, but without ever letting you see the real them. It's as if they think that being overly polite is the best way to get along with people, but in reality, it just makes the relationship feel empty. And here's the kicker, this over-the-top politeness is often used to mask something else, avoidance. It's a way to keep things shallow, to keep the conversation on neutral ground, where no one has to get vulnerable or real. You might find that this person is quick to agree with whatever you say, never challenges you, and is always eager to please. But when you look closer, there's no real connection. They don't offer anything personal or insightful, and they don't seem interested in getting to know you on a deeper level. Sometimes, excessive politeness is a way to protect themselves. Maybe they don't want to offend you, or they're scared of conflict. But when politeness is used as a shield, it leaves little room for anything meaningful. True friendships, real relationships, are built on moments of honesty, even when they're uncomfortable. You can't be genuinely close to someone if all you ever do is tiptoe around the truth with overly polite niceties. So, what do you do when you notice someone being excessively polite without the sincerity behind it? First, recognize that it's a red flag. Overpoliteness can be a cover-up for a lack of authenticity. Pay attention to how you feel after interacting with them. If it feels like you've just had a surface-level exchange, that's exactly what it was. Real connections go beyond politeness. They're messy, raw, and full of real emotion. If someone's not willing to get beyond the pleasantries, maybe it's time to ask yourself if there's someone you truly want to invest in. At the end of the day, sincerity is what makes relationships meaningful. Politeness is nice, but it's the genuine, heartfelt moments that leave a lasting impact. If someone can't give you that, their politeness might just be a smokescreen to hide their true feelings, and that's something you don't need in your life. Number 12, quickly shifting loyalties. The classic move, 1 minute they're all in your corner, backing you up like a loyal ally, and the next, they're swaying with the crowd, hopping to the other side without even a second thought. It's like trying to hold onto water with your hands. Just when you think you've got a firm grip, it slips right through your fingers. Quick shifts in loyalty are a huge red flag that someone isn't being real with you, and it speaks volumes about their character, or lack thereof. Here's the thing, people who constantly shift loyalties don't really stand for anything. They don't have solid principles, and they certainly don't value long-term relationships. They're more interested in immediate benefits, and wherever they think the wind is blowing, that's where they'll plant themselves. It's not about what's right or wrong, but about what's easiest or most convenient for them at the moment. And that? Well, it's not just frustrating, it's downright exhausting. Imagine being in a situation where you're relying on someone to have your back, only to realize that, the moment things get tough, they're nowhere to be found. they've already switched camps, siding with whoever seems to have the upper hand. It's the kind of behavior that makes you question what loyalty even means. Does it only exist when it's easy? When it doesn't cost anything? Loyalty isn't a fair-weather companion. It's a commitment, not a convenience. And those who keep changing sides at the drop of a hat, they're not loyal. They're opportunistic. One of the most jarring aspects of this is the total lack of consistency. With these people, there's no real depth to their relationships. They're like chameleons, morphing and shifting, adjusting themselves to blend in wherever they can get the most attention, approval, or advantage. They'll act like your best friend one moment, and the next, they'll be praising someone else while completely ignoring you. It's disorienting. It leaves you questioning where you stand and whether they're ever really on your side. Now, let's bring in some Stoic wisdom. The Stoics believed in maintaining steadfastness and integrity, no matter what the world threw at you. They weren't about bending to the winds of popularity or chasing after fleeting opinions. Instead, they focused on what was within their control, their own thoughts and actions. If you're dealing with someone who keeps switching their loyalties, it's important to remember, you can't control them. But you can control how you react to it. You can choose to value relationships built on trust and consistency and avoid those that are fickle and unreliable. Stoicism also teaches us to recognize the nature of others. If someone keeps hopping sides, maybe they're just showing their true character. Maybe they're not capable of real loyalty or deep connections. Instead of feeling hurt or betrayed, use that as an opportunity to practice indifference. Don't let their inconsistency throw you off course. Let them shift as they will, but don't let it affect your path. Stay rooted in your principles and keep your focus on what truly matters, what's in your control. At the end of the day, loyalty is a rare and precious thing. It's not something you should expect to find in everyone you meet, and it's definitely not something to take for granted. If someone is quick to jump ship whenever things aren't perfect or convenient, don't waste your energy trying to figure them out. Recognize it for what it is, a sign of their character, and move on. You'll find far more peace in surrounding yourself with those who stay steady, even when the tides turn. Number 13, disappearing during tough times. There's something eye-opening about the way people behave when life gets tough. When the road gets bumpy, some people double down, offering support, showing up, or simply being there to weather the storm with you. But then, there's the other kind, the ones who vanish as soon as things get heavy. No phone calls. No messages. Just silence. It's like you've suddenly become invisible. And that's a huge red flag that someone might be putting on a show, but they're not really invested in you or your well-being. Think about it, friendships and relationships are built on shared experiences, the highs and the lows. So when someone disappears in the middle of a tough moment, it's not just disappointing, it's revealing. It shows that their connection with you isn't rooted in something real. It's convenient for them when things are easy, when life is smooth and you're both living your best lives. But as soon as there's a crack in the surface, they're out the door. It's like they're only in it for the good times, and when things get complicated, they don't have the time, energy, or inclination to stick around. The reason this happens is often tied to a lack of true commitment. Some people are only interested in being part of your life when you're on top of the world, looking shiny and successful. When you're vulnerable, when you need help, when things aren't going your way, that's when you really see who's truly there for you. It's easy to show up when the sun is shining. It's a whole different ball game when the storm clouds roll in. For others, it's fear. They're afraid of getting involved in your problems or being dragged down by your struggles. They might even tell themselves that they're protecting you by staying away, as if their absence is somehow a form of giving you space. But deep down, it's often about their own discomfort with vulnerability, or their inability to cope with difficult emotions. They'd rather bail than be faced with the hard stuff. And if you're left standing there alone, trying to figure things out, you can't help but feel that absence. It stings. Because you start to realize that they weren't ever really all in, they were just along for the ride. But here's the kicker, this kind of behavior doesn't just happen once. It's a pattern. If you look back, you'll start noticing that they're never around when things get real. Maybe they'll call when everything's fine, offering surface-level support. But when the hard times hit, they're gone, like a ghost in the wind. They'll find reasons, excuses, and justifications, but at the end of the day, their actions speak louder than any word they could say. So, what do you do with this? First, stop chasing after people who only show up when it's convenient for them. Real relationships are built on trust and mutual care, and those who disappear when you need them most are showing you exactly where they stand. It's not about punishing them or holding a grudge, but rather about protecting your own energy. You don't need people who are fair-weather friends, stick with those who will be there through the storm. Life's too short to spend your time holding onto relationships that don't stand the test of adversity. If you're left feeling abandoned in tough times, it's a signal. It's a signal that perhaps it's time to reassess your circle, prioritize those who are truly invested in you, and stop pouring your energy into people who can't be bothered when the going gets tough. Because, at the end of the day, that's when you need the real ones to show up. In the next section, let's go over situations where you should never be silent. Number 1, when your boundaries are being crossed. When your boundaries are being crossed, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that staying silent is the best way to handle it. After all, maybe it's easier to just ignore the discomfort, keep the peace, or avoid confrontation, right? But here's the thing, silence in these moments isn't always a sign of wisdom or self-control. Sometimes, it's a quiet surrender to situations that should never have happened in the first place. In Stoic philosophy, there's this emphasis on understanding what's within your control and what isn't. And when someone or something is infringing on your boundaries, that's something you can control. Staying silent when your boundaries are being violated only opens the door for more violations. Imagine, for a second, that you're walking through your life, minding your own business, and someone starts pushing you in a direction you don't want to go. If you stay silent, you're basically giving them permission to keep pushing. The more you let these moments slide without speaking up, the more normalized it becomes for others to treat you in ways you don't deserve. It's as if you're saying, "It's fine, do whatever you want. My comfort doesn't matter." But if you dig into Stoic thinking, you'll realize that your comfort, your peace of mind, and your well-being are crucial. You have a responsibility to protect those things, not only for your own sake but to maintain your integrity and sense of self. And here's where it gets interesting. Boundary setting doesn't have to be about shouting, fighting, or creating drama. Stoicism teaches us that we can be firm yet calm. We don't have to meet aggression with aggression, but we can still stand our ground with clarity and purpose. There's strength in speaking your truth without feeling the need to justify or apologize for it. When someone crosses your boundaries, it's not an invitation for a battle, it's an opportunity to assert who you are and what you will and won't tolerate. Now, I get it. Sometimes, there's fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of pushing someone away. Fear of not being liked. But Stoicism urges us to look beyond the immediate discomfort. The pain of a brief confrontation is far less damaging than the long-term erosion of your sense of self if you keep letting things slide. You are not a doormat, and when you act like one by staying silent, you undermine your own worth. Your peace of mind is worth fighting for, and standing up for your boundaries is one of the clearest ways to protect that peace. The beauty of Stoic wisdom is that it's not about being perfect or always in control. It's about being honest with yourself, recognizing when your limits are being pushed, and taking action, even if that action is simply to speak up. The people around you will come to understand that you respect yourself, and in turn, they'll likely respect you more. And the best part? you'll respect yourself more, too. Because nothing feels better than standing up for who you are and not letting others dictate your boundaries for you. So, the next time you feel those boundaries being tested, don't stay silent. In fact, let your silence be the absence of tolerance for mistreatment, and let your words reflect your commitment to your own dignity and peace. You don't have to raise your voice to make an impact, just make sure your words, when they come, are rooted in confidence and respect. You deserve nothing less. Number 2, when witnessing injustice. You're standing there, heart pounding, watching something that doesn't sit right with your soul. It's that unsettling moment when you feel the weight of your conscience, telling you that what's happening is wrong. Maybe it's someone being mistreated or a situation where power is being used in all the wrong ways. Injustice has this sneaky way of making people freeze, convincing them that staying quiet is easier, or even safer. But here's the truth, silence in the face of injustice is like giving it a free pass. When you witness something unjust, your voice becomes a tool for balance, a weapon against wrong. Now, I get it, speaking up is easier said than done. There's a natural hesitation. Thoughts start swirling. What if I make things worse? What if I embarrass myself? What if no one else cares? That fear, though, it's part of what keeps injustice thriving. It feeds off silence, growing stronger in the shadows of our discomfort. Let's flip that perspective for a second. Think about how it feels to be on the receiving end of injustice. Imagine the desperation of wanting someone, anyone, to say something, to validate that what's happening isn't okay. That alone should nudge you to speak up, even if your voice shakes. Because here's the thing, sometimes, it's not about delivering a perfect speech or being the loudest person in the room. Sometimes, it's just about being the one who says, "This isn't right." But what if you feel too small to make a difference? It's tempting to think, what can I, just one person, really do? That's the trap, a dangerous lie that keeps people passive. The truth is, injustice hates resistance, no matter how small. Even a single voice can ripple outwards, breaking the illusion that no one cares. And here's the kicker, when one person speaks, it encourages others to find their courage too. Suddenly, what seemed like a lone battle turns into a collective stand. Now, let's talk about the gray areas, the situations where the lines between right and wrong blur just enough to make you second-guess yourself. This is where Stoicism steps in, reminding you to act in alignment with your values, not your comfort. Courage, after all, isn't about feeling fearless, it's about choosing to act despite the fear. And sometimes, it's not just about shouting from the rooftops. Maybe it's pulling someone aside, addressing the issue privately, or even using subtle gestures to disrupt the status quo. The method matters less than the act itself. At the end of the day, witnessing injustice is a test, a moment where your principles and your actions meet face to face. Will you stand idly by, letting wrongs slide? Or will you step into the discomfort, using your voice as a force for good? The choice is yours, but remember this, silence is not neutral. It's a vote for the oppressor, a quiet agreement to let things stay as they are. Speak up. Even if it's messy. Even if it's scary. Because the world doesn't just need more spectators, it needs more warriors for what's right. Number 3, when a loved one is in danger. Picture this, someone you deeply care about is in harm's way. Do you stand there, mute, and let fate decide their course, or do you step up and speak out? This is no time for silence, it's when your voice needs to cut through the noise and be heard. Your words, your actions, your presence, they could be the lifeline that saves them. Sometimes, danger isn't glaringly obvious. It could be subtle, creeping in like a shadow, a toxic relationship, poor choices, or even their own self-destructive habits. And while it might feel easier to stay quiet, to avoid conflict or upsetting them, that silence can cost so much more. Imagine the regret of knowing you could have done something but chose not to. Now, speaking up doesn't mean bursting into a room, wagging a finger, and shouting orders. It's about approaching the situation with courage and care. Your loved one might not even realize they're in trouble. Maybe they're caught in a whirlwind of emotions, blind to the danger, or too scared to admit it. Your voice, steady, compassionate, and firm, can be the anchor they need to pull themselves out. But let's be real, it's not always easy to speak up. You might second-guess yourself. What if I'm overreacting? What if they get mad? These thoughts are normal, but they're also distractions. When someone you care about is at risk, the stakes are too high for hesitation. Your concern might sting at first, but true love and loyalty often do. The goal isn't to criticize or control, it's to protect, to guide, to remind them that they're not alone in facing whatever storm they're in. Your words, however, have to be chosen wisely. A careless comment can push them further away, while a thoughtful one can bridge the gap. Instead of attacking the problem head-on, sometimes it's better to ask questions, listen, and let them open up. This creates a space where they feel safe to share, to reflect, to consider what you're saying. It's not about being loud, it's about being impactful. And here's the thing, even if your efforts don't seem to make a difference immediately, don't lose heart. Seeds of truth take time to grow. Your words might echo in their mind long after the conversation ends, guiding them towards safer ground. Silence, however, leaves nothing behind, no echoes, no hope, no second chances. So, when you sense danger circling someone you love, don't hold back. Speak, not because it's easy, but because it matters. Be the voice they need when there's falters. After all, love isn't just about being there for the good times. It's about standing firm in the tough ones, being willing to fight for their safety, even if it means stepping out of your comfort zone. Silence in such moments? That's a luxury no one can afford. Number 4, when someone is being bullied. When you see someone being bullied, the instinct to remain silent can sometimes creep in. Maybe you're unsure of how to react or afraid of making things worse. But silence in those moments? It's not just neutral, it's complicity. Stoicism teaches us to be responsible for our actions, yes, but it also emphasizes our duty to be aware of what's happening around us. And when someone is being mistreated, ignoring it doesn't just hurt them, it chips away at our own integrity. Here's the truth, standing by in silence while someone gets bullied isn't a stoic act of patience or acceptance. It's a choice to do nothing. Stoics believe in acting with virtue and purpose, and virtue isn't just about your own moral compass, it's about how you show up for others, especially in the face of injustice. Being silent in the face of bullying allows that injustice to persist unchecked, and that's something no Stoic would stand by. Now, you don't have to dive into the situation guns blazing, ready for a confrontation. Stoicism isn't about throwing yourself into battles that don't serve a greater purpose. But speaking up, even in small ways, can make a huge difference. Sometimes, all it takes is a word of support for the person being bullied, a simple acknowledgement that what's happening isn't okay. You might think that it won't change anything, that your one voice is too small to matter. But that's a limited view. One voice can spark something. One voice can show the person being bullied that they're not alone, that their pain doesn't go unnoticed, and that they deserve better. And that might just be the lifeline they need to stand tall again. And let's talk about that discomfort for a second. Stoicism isn't about ignoring feelings, it's about recognizing them and responding with rationality, not emotion. Yes, it might feel uncomfortable to speak up, especially when the bully holds power in a situation, but that discomfort is temporary. The guilt of not speaking up? That stays with you. If you choose silence, you'll carry the weight of inaction long after the situation has passed. On the other hand, speaking out, even in a calm, measured way, aligns you with your own values and allows you to look yourself in the mirror without regret. You might also worry about the potential backlash. What if you get caught in the crossfire? What if the bully turns their attention to you next? These fears are valid, but they also show the importance of embracing the Stoic principle of controlling what you can control. You can't control the bully's reaction, but you can control your actions. You can control whether you choose to speak your truth, whether you stand up for what's right, even if the situation feels intimidating. The true strength of a Stoic isn't in avoiding challenges, but in facing them head-on, with grace and courage. In the end, silence when someone is being bullied isn't an act of peace or wisdom. It's an abdication of your moral responsibility. A Stoic doesn't just stand by when they see harm being done. They act, not from a place of aggression, but from a deep understanding of what it means to live with integrity and compassion. So, next time you see someone being hurt, remember that your voice matters. It doesn't have to be loud, but it does need to be there. Speak up. It's the Stoic thing to do. Number 5, when the truth needs to be spoken. There's a certain weight to the truth. It's not always light or easy to carry. In fact, sometimes, it feels like it might crush you. But that's the thing about truth, it demands to be spoken, even when it shakes the ground beneath your feet. Staying silent when you know what needs to be said can eat away at you, like a slow burn in your chest. It nags at your conscience, reminding you that the moment to speak up is slipping further away. Speaking the truth isn't just about blurting out facts. It's about integrity, about aligning what's in your heart and mind with what comes out of your mouth. But let's be honest, it's not always the most comfortable thing to do. The truth can stir up conflict. It can make people squirm. It can even make you second-guess yourself. Yet, deep down, you know the truth has a power that silence never will. Think about those times when the air is thick with unspoken words. You can feel the tension. You know everyone is skirting around the obvious. And there you are, holding the truth like a match, wondering if it's worth lighting the fuse. It's tempting to keep quiet, to tell yourself it's not your place, or that someone else will eventually step in. But what if they don't? What if your voice is the only one brave enough to cut through the noise? Now, don't get it twisted, speaking the truth doesn't mean being harsh or reckless. It's not about throwing words like daggers or unloading your frustrations under the guise of honesty. Truth, when delivered with care and intention, has a way of piercing through the fog without causing unnecessary harm. It's about finding that balance, saying what needs to be said, but in a way that encourages understanding, not destruction. Of course, there's a catch. The truth isn't always welcomed with open arms. People might resist it, deny it, or even turn on you for speaking it. But here's the kicker, that doesn't make the truth any less valid. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our words, our actions, our courage. You can't control how others will react to the truth, but you can control whether or not you speak it. And sometimes, it's not just about them, it's about you. The truth sets you free, sure, but it also keeps you grounded. It's a reminder that your values aren't just ideas, they're actions. When you stay silent, you betray yourself. You let fear, doubt, or convenience dictate your choices. But when you speak the truth, even when it's hard, you stand taller. You honor your principles. You become the person you're meant to be. So, when the truth needs to be spoken, don't hesitate. Let it out, even if your voice shakes. Because the alternative, living in the shadow of unspoken words, feels far heavier than the burden of honesty ever will. Number 6, when unethical behavior is happening. Alright, let's cut to the chase, seeing something wrong and staying quiet. That's a recipe for regret. When unethical behavior is happening, silence isn't just a passive act, it's an endorsement, whether you mean it or not. And that's the tricky thing about morality, you can't always sit on the sidelines. Sometimes, you've got to stand up, speak out, and call things what they are. Unethical behavior comes in so many shades. It's not always the big, flashy wrongdoing that screams for attention. It could be a subtle manipulation, a quiet act of dishonesty, or a rule bent just enough to blur the lines. And let's be honest, there's a moment, a split second, where you might think, should I say something? Maybe it's not my place. Maybe it's not a big deal. But here's the thing, if it makes your gut twist or your conscience flare up, it's worth addressing. Now, that doesn't mean you need to charge in, swords blazing, and declare yourself the moral police. Sometimes, the loudest message can come in a calm, steady tone. Speaking up against unethical behavior isn't about causing drama or making a scene, it's about drawing a line and saying, this isn't okay. And yes, it might feel uncomfortable. Heck, it might even backfire in the moment. But doing the right thing rarely comes gift-wrapped in ease and applause. Why do we hesitate, though? Fear of backlash, maybe. The worry that others will judge you, that you'll stir the pot too much, or that you're stepping into a fight you didn't ask for. That fear is normal, it's human. But ask yourself, what's the cost of staying silent? What kind of world do you contribute to when you let wrongness slide by unchecked? Because make no mistake, silence isn't neutral. It tips the scales, always. Here's where things get real. Speaking up doesn't guarantee you'll fix everything. You might raise your voice, and the situation still spirals out of control. You might call out bad behavior, and people might not listen. But that's not the point. The point is to act in alignment with your values. To stand firm in what you believe. To be the person who doesn't just talk about integrity but lives it, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard. When unethical behavior happens, your words can be the turning point. Maybe not for everyone involved, but for someone. Maybe even just for yourself. Speaking out isn't just about changing the world outside you, it's about shaping the one inside, too. Silence, on the other hand, eats away at that inner world. It creates cracks where doubt and guilt creep in. So, when you see wrong, don't shrink back. Say something. Challenge it. Speak up, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because when you stand against what's wrong, you're also standing for what's right, and that's the kind of action that echoes far beyond the moment. Number 7, when defending your values or beliefs. When it comes to defending your values or beliefs, staying silent can sometimes feel like the safer option. After all, who wants to risk a heated debate or the potential discomfort of someone challenging what you stand for? But here's the catch, silence in those moments doesn't preserve peace. It dilutes your very essence. Stoicism teaches us that part of living virtuously is embracing and standing firm in our convictions. The idea is simple, your beliefs aren't just some abstract concepts, they're the core of who you are. If you stay quiet when they're being questioned or attacked, you're essentially giving up a piece of yourself. Think about it this way, your values shape the decisions you make, the way you live, and even the way you show up for others. If you allow others to dismiss or undermine them without saying a word, what message are you sending? It's like saying, I'm not really sure what I stand for, or it's not important enough to fight for. That's not the Stoic way. A Stoic doesn't shy away from defending what is right and true, especially when those things are personal and deeply ingrained. Now, defending your values doesn't mean that you have to go into full-blown battle mode at every opportunity. Stoicism teaches us to engage with wisdom, to not allow our emotions to dictate our actions. It's about staying calm and composed, but still being clear in your convictions. You can stand your ground without yelling, without losing your cool. It's not about proving you're right, but about ensuring that your beliefs are respected, not just by others, but by yourself. Because the truth is, if you don't speak up, you might start to doubt your own convictions, even if you don't realize it at first. Over time, this erosion can leave you feeling disconnected from your own sense of self. But let's be real for a second, defending your beliefs can be uncomfortable. No one likes to feel like they're being attacked for their views, or like they're constantly on the defensive. And yes, there's always the chance that the conversation might get tense or someone might take it personally. But silence? That doesn't protect you from conflict, it just leaves you with unresolved tension. In the long run, that silent acquiescence chips away at your confidence. It's like letting someone push you around without ever saying, "Hey, that's not okay." Stoicism reminds us that we can't control how others will react, but we can control how we respond. So when your values are questioned or misunderstood, the key is to respond with clarity and confidence, not defensiveness or aggression. You don't need to convince everyone, and you don't need to change anyone's mind. But standing firm in your beliefs, even in the face of opposition, is a mark of strength. It's a reminder that what you stand for matters, and that you, as a person, matter. It's also important to recognize that defending your values isn't about winning arguments. Sometimes, the act of defending your beliefs is just about stating them clearly, calmly, and firmly. In the world of Stoic philosophy, it's not about making others see things your way, it's about staying true to your principles regardless of the external noise. Whether others agree with you or not is secondary. What matters most is that you're staying true to what you believe. So, when the moment comes where you feel your values being challenged, don't shrink back in silence. Speak up, not out of anger, but out of conviction. Your voice has the power to reaffirm not only your beliefs but also your sense of self. And that's a power worth using. Number 8. When someone asks for help. There's something humbling about the moment someone looks you in the eye, opens up, and asks for help. It's not an easy thing to do, for anyone. Asking for help means admitting vulnerability, recognizing that they can't do it alone. It's raw, real, and deeply human. And when someone reaches out like that, it's a crossroads moment for you. Your response matters. Your silence, or lack of it, matters even more. Think about it, when someone asks for help, they're trusting you. It's a small but significant leap of faith. They don't know for sure if you'll respond, if you'll listen, or if you even care. And yet, they've chosen to break the silence and reach out. That's brave. What isn't brave is turning away or pretending you didn't hear them. Ignoring a plea for help? That's like turning your back on what it means to be human. Now, let's be real, it's not always convenient to help. Sometimes, you're busy. Sometimes, you don't have the energy. Sometimes, you feel like you don't have the answers. And it's tempting in those moments to tell yourself it's not your problem or that someone else will step in. But here's the thing, help doesn't always mean solving someone's problem. Sometimes, it's just about showing up. Being there. Listening. Letting them know they're not alone. Your silence, on the other hand, can feel like a door slamming shut, leaving them standing there, alone with their struggles. Helping doesn't have to mean grand gestures or fixing everything on the spot. It could be a kind word, a bit of advice, or even just a moment of your time. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need all the answers. What matters is that you care enough to try. Even a small effort can make a huge difference. It can lift someone up, remind them that they're not invisible, that someone sees them and is willing to lend a hand. And let's not forget, Stoicism isn't about shutting yourself off from others. It's about living in harmony with nature, and humans are inherently social creatures. We're wired to help each other. By stepping up when someone asks for help, you're not just doing something for them, you're living in alignment with your values, with the principles of compassion and courage. You're showing that you're not afraid to engage with the world and its messiness. Sure, there might be times when you can't do as much as you'd like. That's okay. Even then, your willingness to acknowledge someone's need, to offer whatever you can, is what counts. Don't underestimate the impact of simply being there and breaking the silence with, "How can I help?" Those words can be a lifeline. So when someone asks for help, don't let your silence be the answer. Speak up, act, and connect. Because in those moments, your voice and actions carry the power to make a world of difference, for them and for you. Number 9. When silence enables harm. Sometimes, staying quiet feels like the easiest path. No conflict, no spotlight, no messy emotions. But what happens when your silence is the reason harm continues? That's the question you've got to wrestle with, because when silence enables harm, it's not just a passive choice, it becomes part of the problem. Think about it. Harm doesn't always show up like a raging storm. Sometimes, it's a slow erosion, something that creeps in gradually, almost unnoticed, until it's too late. And if you're standing there, watching it unfold, staying silent feels like betrayal, doesn't it? Not just to the person being hurt, but to yourself and everything you stand for. Harm thrives in the shadows, and silence is the cloak that lets it hide. But let's be real, it's not always easy to speak up. Fear kicks in. Maybe you worry about making waves, being misunderstood, or stepping on toes. It's tempting to convince yourself that someone else will say something, that it's not your battle, that you're better off staying out of it. That internal debate is like a tug-of-war between your conscience and your comfort zone. Here's the thing, though, silence has power. It's not neutral, it carries weight. When you choose not to speak up, you're unintentionally giving permission for harm to continue. It's like standing by while a fire spreads because you don't want to yell fire and disturb the peace. Except, in this case, the fire might be burning someone's dignity, safety, or even their future. Speaking out doesn't mean you need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's a quiet, firm statement, a gentle but clear stand against what's happening. Other times, it's about asking questions that make people think or stepping in to offer help when no one else will. The way you act matters less than the fact that you act at all. Harm can take many forms, and so can resistance. Now, let's address the fear. Yeah, speaking up might make you unpopular. It might get messy. You might stumble over your words or face pushback. But think about the alternative. Picture yourself looking back on this moment, knowing you had the chance to make a difference but chose to stay quiet. That kind of regret has a way of lingering, doesn't it? When harm is happening, your silence doesn't protect you, it traps you. It ties you to the very thing you're trying to avoid. But when you speak up, even in the smallest way, you're breaking that chain. You're creating a ripple that could change the course of what's happening. Maybe it's not a tidal wave, but ripples matter too. So, when you see harm unfolding, don't hesitate too long. Find your courage, even if it shakes. Speak, even if your voice wavers. The harm you stop might be bigger than you realize, and the stand you take will echo far beyond the moment. Silence might seem safe, but action is what truly protects and heals. Number 10. When facing workplace harassment. Facing workplace harassment is one of those situations where silence can feel like the easiest option. You might fear backlash, doubt whether it's worth speaking up, or think that staying quiet will help you avoid more trouble. But here's the truth, silence in these moments is not your friend, it's a silent agreement to let the situation continue. Stoicism teaches us that we have control over how we respond to life's challenges, even when we're placed in uncomfortable or unfair situations. And when it comes to harassment, not speaking up isn't just a passive response, it's a choice to tolerate behavior that goes against your dignity and values. Think about it, when you allow harassment to continue unchecked, you're not just letting someone cross boundaries, you're allowing them to make you feel smaller, less than you are. A Stoic doesn't shrink in the face of adversity, they confront it with strength, resolve, and integrity. Facing workplace harassment can be daunting, no doubt, but it's also an opportunity to practice the Stoic virtues of courage and justice. You don't have to become a crusader, but standing up for yourself is about more than just defending your space. It's about protecting your self-respect and sense of worth. Now, I know it can feel overwhelming. You might worry about the consequences of speaking up. Could it cost you your job? Will people view you differently? These concerns are real, and Stoicism doesn't ask you to ignore them. But it does encourage you to weigh the longer-term cost of remaining silent. What happens to your self-esteem, your mental health, your sense of peace if you choose to suffer in silence? The answer is simple: it erodes. Over time, that silence turns into resentment, frustration, and even self-doubt. And that's not the path a Stoic would choose. Stoicism isn't about avoiding hardship, it's about handling it with grace, standing tall, and refusing to be diminished by it. Defending yourself against harassment doesn't mean you have to escalate the situation or get confrontational. Stoicism encourages us to remain calm, clear-headed, and in control of our emotions. You don't have to shout or make a scene, but you do need to assert your boundaries in a direct and firm way. When someone crosses a line, say it. Tell them it's not okay. You don't need to apologize for expecting respect. You deserve it, period. And if the harassment continues after you've spoken up, that's when Stoicism really comes into play. You might feel tempted to go into fight or flight mode, but remember the Stoic ideal of focusing on what's within your control. You can't control the behavior of others, but you can control how you respond. You have the right to protect yourself by seeking help, reporting the behavior, or taking steps to remove yourself from the situation. The key is not to let yourself become complicit by staying silent. Inaction is a form of acceptance, and that's not something a Stoic would ever accept. In the end, workplace harassment is about power, someone trying to make you feel less, trying to manipulate or dominate you. But Stoicism teaches that true strength doesn't come from yielding, it comes from standing firm in your principles. Your peace of mind, your dignity, and your well-being matter, and when faced with harassment, speaking up is the most Stoic thing you can do. It's about taking back your power, setting boundaries, and demanding respect, not just from others, but from yourself, too. Number 11, when an apology is needed. There's a kind of weight you carry when you know you've done something wrong, even if it's a small thing. It sits there, unspoken, gnawing at the edges of your peace of mind. You can try to ignore it, push it to the back of your head, but deep down, you know what needs to be done. It's simple in theory, just apologize. But let's face it, saying I'm sorry can feel like pulling teeth. It's uncomfortable, humbling, and sometimes downright awkward. Yet, it's one of the most important things you can do. Apologies aren't just about smoothing things over or ticking some moral checkbox. They're about owning your actions, stepping up, and taking responsibility. And when the moment calls for it, silence isn't just unhelpful, it can be harmful. Avoiding an apology doesn't make the situation go away, it festers. It leaves a gap where accountability should be, and that gap only grows with time. But why is it so hard? Ego plays a big part. Nobody likes admitting they were wrong. It can feel like you're exposing a part of yourself you'd rather keep hidden, like you're giving up some imaginary power. The irony is that the opposite is true. A heartfelt apology doesn't make you weaker, it shows strength. It says, I'm not afraid to face this. I value our connection more than my pride. And honestly, there's a kind of freedom in that. An apology doesn't have to be a big, dramatic thing. It doesn't need a rehearsed speech or fancy words. In fact, the simpler and more sincere it is, the better. I messed up, and I'm sorry carries a lot more weight than a long-winded excuse. People don't need perfection, they need honesty. They need to see that you recognize the hurt or inconvenience you caused and that you care enough to acknowledge it. Now, here's the tricky part, apologizing isn't about expecting forgiveness. That's not your call to make. A real apology doesn't come with conditions or guarantees. It's about doing what's right, regardless of how the other person reacts. Sometimes, the apology won't fix everything. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth giving. It's a step, a gesture, a way of saying, I respect you enough to make this right, as best as I can. Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can control, our actions, our words, our choices. An apology is entirely within your control. Whether or not someone accepts it, that's on them. But you'll know you've done your part, that you didn't let silence be the final word when accountability was needed. So, when the moment comes, and you feel that knot in your stomach, don't shy away from it. Speak up. Let the words come out, even if they stumble or feel clumsy. Because an apology, no matter how imperfect, is always better than silence. It's a bridge, sometimes shaky, but a bridge nonetheless, that connects you to the person on the other side. And that connection is worth the effort. Number 12, when advocating for the vulnerable. There are moments when life demands that you speak, not for yourself, but for those who can't, or won't, speak for themselves. These moments are a test of your character, your courage, and your commitment to doing what's right. Advocating for the vulnerable isn't just an option, it's a moral obligation. When someone's voice is too quiet to be heard, or when their circumstances leave them powerless, silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. The vulnerable exist in many forms. It's not always about physical weakness or visible struggle. Sometimes, it's someone trapped in a system that doesn't see them, caught in a cycle they can't break, or silenced by fear or shame. It's easy for society to overlook these people, to let their struggles fade into the background noise. But when you notice, when you see the injustice or neglect, that's the moment to step up. Let's be real, speaking up for someone else can feel daunting. You might worry about overstepping, about getting involved in something too big or messy. You might even second-guess whether your voice will make a difference. But here's the truth, silence only strengthens the systems and circumstances that keep the vulnerable stuck. It's a shield for the status quo, and sometimes, the status quo is the problem. Advocating doesn't mean shouting from the rooftops or staging grand gestures, though sometimes that's necessary. It can start small, a word, a question, a refusal to turn away. You don't need to have all the answers or be some kind of savior. What matters is your willingness to acknowledge what others might ignore and to act when it's easier not to. But let's not sugarcoat it, advocacy can be uncomfortable. You might find yourself standing against popular opinions or rubbing people the wrong way. It's not always convenient to challenge the norm or question authority. Yet, the alternative is worse. Imagine the weight of knowing you could have spoken up but didn't. That kind of regret is heavy, and it sticks with you. Here's where it gets interesting. Advocating for the vulnerable isn't just about them. It's also about you. It's about the kind of person you want to be, the principles you want to live by. Every time you speak up, you're strengthening your own integrity. You're reminding yourself that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action despite it. And don't underestimate the ripple effect of your actions. Your voice, your stand, can inspire others to do the same. You might not see the impact right away, but seeds take time to grow. What matters is that you plant them. So, when you see someone who needs a voice, be that voice. Speak up when it's uncomfortable, when it's scary, when it feels like no one else will. Because sometimes, your words are the only bridge between their silence and the justice they deserve. In a world full of noise, let your voice be the one that truly matters. Number 13, when staying silent compromises your integrity. When staying silent starts to compromise your integrity, that's when you know it's time to speak up. It can be tempting to keep quiet, especially in situations where you feel like saying something might cause drama or upset the balance. But here's the thing, silence might seem like the easy way out. but it can quietly chip away at your sense of self, and that's when things start to get tricky. Stoicism teaches us that integrity, living in alignment with your values, is key to living a virtuous life. And when you stay silent in situations that require you to act or speak up, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're betraying your own values. Think about the times when you've held back something important because you didn't want to rock the boat. Maybe you felt like the price of speaking out would be too high. Maybe you told yourself, it's not worth it, or it's not my problem. But what happens to your internal peace when you choose silence over action? Slowly, over time, that silence builds up into a quiet resentment, a feeling of disconnection between who you truly are and how you're showing up in the world. Stoicism teaches that the most important thing is living in harmony with your core principles. If you silence your truth for fear of upsetting others, you're straying from that path. Silence in these moments isn't neutral. It's not like you're just sitting back and watching. No, staying quiet when you should speak is an active choice to suppress your own beliefs, your own voice. And eventually, that choice catches up with you. You start to feel less like yourself. You start to wonder why you didn't say what you truly felt. That gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be gets wider, and the longer you let it stretch, the more difficult it becomes to reconnect with your true self. It's not that speaking up is always easy. It's not. Stoicism doesn't promise that life will be free from discomfort. In fact, it asks you to embrace challenges, even when they make you uncomfortable. But what Stoicism does promise is that when you live in alignment with your values, you build strength. You build resilience. You build a sense of integrity that no external circumstance can touch. When you compromise on your integrity by staying silent, you may avoid short-term discomfort, but you create a long-term erosion of self-trust. There's also this idea that, by staying silent, you're somehow being good, that you're avoiding conflict and keeping things peaceful. But peace that comes at the expense of your truth isn't real peace, it's avoidance. Stoicism teaches that true peace comes from within, from knowing that you're acting in accordance with your highest values, no matter what the outside world does. The true peace you're looking for isn't in the absence of conflict, it's in standing firm in your integrity, even if it means facing discomfort. And let's not forget that silence in the face of injustice, or when you feel like something's off, isn't just bad for your integrity, it's bad for everyone involved. Sometimes, speaking up doesn't just protect your own values, it sets a standard for others. It tells people that there's a line you won't let anyone cross. When you stay silent, you're not just hurting yourself, you're reinforcing the very behavior you disagree with. By remaining silent, you're giving your tacit approval to things that undermine your values, and that's a compromise you shouldn't be willing to make. So, the next time you feel that tug inside to stay quiet because speaking up might make things awkward or difficult, pause and ask yourself, am I willing to compromise my integrity just to avoid the discomfort of being honest? Because true strength comes from being willing to speak up, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. When you choose silence that compromises your integrity, you're letting go of the very thing that gives your life meaning. Speak up, not just for the world around you, but for your own sense of self. It's the stoic thing to do. In the last section, let's learn how to make an aggressive person sorry. Number 1, stay calm and composed. When you find yourself in the middle of a heated exchange with someone who's on the offensive, it's easy to let your emotions take the wheel. But if you really want to disarm them and make them regret their aggressive tone, staying calm and composed is your secret weapon. It might sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful. In fact, it's the cornerstone of a lot of Stoic philosophy, and for good reason. First, let's talk about why this works. When a person is angry, their mind is clouded with emotion. Their words are coming from a place of heightened sensitivity and frustration. Now, if you match that intensity, the situation only escalates. You're feeding into the storm, making it harder to find calm waters. On the other hand, when you remain composed, you're effectively grounding yourself in reality. You become a calm oasis in the middle of their emotional chaos, and that alone can have a huge impact on the way they perceive the situation. It's not about being passive or shutting down, it's about choosing not to let their anger dictate your behavior. Imagine you're facing someone who's raising their voice, pointing fingers, and using sharp words. You could easily fall into the trap of defending yourself or matching their tone. But if you hold your ground and speak with measured calmness, your words carry a quiet weight. You're not panicking, not reacting in haste, and that calmness can be incredibly disarming. It creates a space where the other person can start to see the absurdity of their own aggression. Being calm also gives you the upper hand in controlling your own emotions. When you stay composed, you're not reacting from a place of fear or frustration. You're choosing how to respond, not just reacting automatically. This shift in control can make all the difference. You don't have to fall into the trap of defending every word or trying to justify yourself. By staying calm, you show them that their anger doesn't faze you, that you're in charge of the situation. It can even cause them to pause and reflect. Now, let's dig into how you can keep that cool. It starts with recognizing your own internal reactions. It's almost like you're observing yourself from the outside. Are you feeling your heart race? Is your breath getting shallow? Recognizing those physical signs of rising tension is the first step. Once you're aware of them, you can take control, slow your breath, relax your muscles, and focus on keeping your thoughts clear. It's like flipping a switch in your mind to pause and think before reacting. It's a form of mental discipline that Stoic philosophy teaches, learning to control your reactions, not just your actions. And here's a bonus: when you stay calm, you're setting a standard. People begin to expect that level of calmness from you. It's like building a reputation for being someone who doesn't get rattled. That alone can make aggressive people think twice before trying to push your buttons again in the future. So, next time you find yourself facing an aggressive person, don't just react, pause, breathe, and remain steady. It's one of the most effective verbal tricks you can use. Not only does it protect your peace of mind, but it also sends a clear message: aggression doesn't faze you. It shifts the power dynamic, and in time, it might just make them wish they hadn't let their anger get the better of them. Number 2, use a low, steady tone of voice. There's a subtle power in how you speak, more than people usually realize. When someone comes at you aggressively, it's natural to want to raise your voice or match their intensity. But here's the trick: don't. Instead, drop your tone. Keep it low, steady, and even. Why? Because it's disarming in the most unexpected way. Think about it. When someone is riled up, they're feeding off emotion, yours, theirs, everyone's. They expect you to push back, to react with the same heat they're throwing at you. But when you hold steady, speaking calmly and clearly, it's like throwing water on a fire. Their aggression has nothing to latch onto. You're not giving them the satisfaction of a clash. Instead, you're showing composure, control, and an unshakable demeanor. That can be frustrating for them, but also humbling. This low, steady tone isn't just about controlling the situation, it's about controlling yourself. Staying grounded when someone's coming at you like a hurricane takes discipline. It's a stoic move in the purest sense, choosing how to respond instead of letting your emotions choose for you. You're showing that you won't let their chaos dictate your calm. And that's powerful. It's like saying, without actually saying it, I'm unbothered by your storm. Now, the beauty of this tactic is that it's versatile. Your words matter, sure, but the how often overshadows the what. The same sentence can land completely differently depending on the tone you use. When your voice is steady, it carries an undertone of confidence, of self-assuredness. It tells the other person, I'm not threatened by this situation. And people pick up on that energy, even if they don't consciously realize it. But it's not just about tone, it's also about pace. Don't rush. Rushing sounds nervous. Take your time with your words. Speak slowly, deliberately, as if you're choosing each one with care. This forces the other person to slow down too, whether they want to or not. Your steady tone acts like an anchor, pulling the entire conversation down to a manageable level. They're shouting. You're responding softly. They're rushing. You're pacing yourself. This contrast shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, you're in control without even trying to be. Here's a side bonus. Keeping your tone low and steady can have an unexpected effect on your own emotions. It's hard to stay angry, defensive, or anxious when you're speaking calmly. Your body and mind tend to follow the signals your voice sends out. So, by choosing to speak this way, you're not just diffusing their aggression, you're also grounding yourself. 2 wins in 1 move. Remember, people don't just hear words, they feel the energy behind them. And when your tone communicates calm strength, it says more than any argument ever could. It makes the other person pause, reflect, and often rethink their approach. And sometimes, that's all it takes to make them feel a twinge of regret for coming at you the way they did. Number 3, ask open-ended questions. One of the coolest ways to diffuse aggression and make someone stop in their tracks is by asking open-ended questions. It's like a secret weapon, not a physical one, obviously, but a mental tool that shifts the dynamic in any heated conversation. You know how most arguments feel like a back-and-forth ping-pong match, where everyone's just trying to smash the ball harder. Open-ended questions take that ball and, instead of smashing it, gently toss it back with curiosity. It's unexpected, and it completely changes the energy. The beauty of an open-ended question is that it invites the other person to think. And let's be real, when someone's being aggressive, they're usually not thinking, they're reacting. By asking something that requires more than a simple yes or no, you're forcing them to step out of that reactive mode. It's like flipping a switch in their brain, making them go, wait, what just happened here? For example, instead of snapping back at someone who's clearly upset, you might calmly ask, what's really on your mind, or how do you think we can work through this together? These types of questions aren't just conversation fillers, they're openings for connection. And here's the trick, they don't feel confrontational. Instead, they make the other person feel like their perspective actually matters, which, let's face it, is often what they want deep down. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but won't they just keep ranting? Maybe. But here's the thing, ranting without resistance often loses steam. Aggression thrives on pushback. If they're expecting a fight and you give them curiosity, it's like throwing water on a fire. They may still be angry, sure, but now they're engaging with you on a different level. There's also something incredibly powerful about showing genuine curiosity in the middle of conflict. It's disarming in the best way possible. Aggressive people often expect aggression in return. It's almost like they've braced themselves for a war of words. When you drop the metaphorical sword and offer them space to share their thoughts, it's a move they didn't see coming. And here's the kicker, it subtly puts the ball back in their court. They're now the ones who need to think, explain, or justify their stance. It's not about trapping them, it's about slowing things down so both of you can breathe a little. Another underrated perk of open-ended questions? They buy you time. Instead of firing off a reaction, you're giving yourself a moment to pause and think. That pause is golden because it keeps you from saying something you might regret later. It's like a mental buffer, and in a heated situation, those few seconds can be a lifesaver. And let's not forget the Stoic philosophy behind all this. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, they'd totally approve. Staying calm and curious in the face of aggression is like the ultimate flex of self-control. You're not just reacting, you're choosing your response with intention. Open-ended questions aren't just words, they're tools for maintaining your own inner peace while subtly encouraging the other person to drop their defenses. So, next time you're caught in the storm of someone else's aggression, try it. Toss out an open-ended question and watch the temperature drop. It might just leave them wondering how you managed to stay so composed, and maybe, just maybe, they'll feel a little sorry for losing their cool in the first place. Number 4, reframe their words constructively. When someone's coming at you with aggression, it can feel like you're being hit with a wave of harsh words. But here's the trick: instead of letting their words knock you down, why not flip the script and reframe what they're saying in a more constructive way? Think of it like catching a baseball and throwing it right back, except this time, you're catching their aggression and redirecting it into something productive, calm, and even helpful. The beauty of reframing is that it takes the power out of their hands and puts it in yours. They might be throwing insults, criticisms, or heated accusations at you, but you don't have to absorb their negativity. Instead, take a step back and look at what's being said from a different angle. It's like stepping out of the emotional swamp and seeing the conversation from a higher perspective. What do their words really mean beneath all that anger? Is there a hint of frustration? A desire to be heard? Maybe even a need for validation that they're not expressing properly? Reframing doesn't mean you're ignoring or dismissing what they're saying. It's not about pretending their anger doesn't exist. It's about interpreting their words in a way that reduces the emotional charge while still addressing the issue at hand. So, when they say something harsh, you could respond with something like, "I hear you're upset about X, and I can understand why that would bother you." By doing this, you're acknowledging their feelings without getting sucked into the emotional chaos. You're also giving them a space to feel heard, which, paradoxically, might be exactly what's needed to calm them down. Now, the key here is to stay grounded in your own responses. Reframing isn't just about turning their words into something more palatable for you, it's about guiding the conversation to a place where both of you can discuss things more openly and rationally. The more calmly you reframe, the more likely they are to start seeing their own words differently. If they realize they're not going to provoke you, the aggressive energy tends to fizzle out on its own. Another benefit of reframing is that it can open up the possibility for a productive conversation. Instead of turning the exchange into a battle of egos, you transform it into an opportunity for dialogue. By reframing what they say, you're subtly shifting the focus from attack to understanding. It's like changing the lens through which you both are viewing the situation. Maybe their words are laced with frustration, but underneath it, there's something valid that you can address. Think of reframing as a soft skill that requires you to be aware of your own emotions and the other person's. It's about understanding that aggression doesn't always come from a place of malice. It can come from vulnerability, from a need to be seen or understood. When you start looking at the root of the aggression rather than just the outward expression, you give yourself the power to respond in a way that diffuses the situation rather than escalating it. So, next time someone throws their verbal punches at you, try not to react. Instead, take a deep breath, reframe their words, and steer the conversation to calmer waters. It's a game changer. You won't just make them rethink their approach, you might just make them sorry for their aggression in the first place. Number 5, acknowledge their emotions without agreeing. When someone's in your face, fired up and ready to argue, the last thing they expect is understanding. It throws them off balance, like pulling the rug out from under their aggression. But here's the nuance: you're not agreeing with them, you're simply saying, "Hey, I see you. I get that you're feeling this way." That's it. No need to validate their point if you don't agree with it, just validate the feeling behind it. Let's break this down. People crave acknowledgement. When someone's angry or upset, there's usually an emotional weight behind it, a frustration, a fear, maybe even a sense of injustice. By recognizing that emotion, you're telling them, "I hear you," without giving up your own stance. This isn't about conceding ground, it's about diffusing tension. It's a subtle but effective move that shows you're not dismissing their humanity, even if you disagree with their perspective. Now, here's where it gets tricky. You've got to be careful with your words and your tone. If you sound patronizing or fake, it'll backfire instantly. People can sniff out insincerity like a bloodhound. So instead of generic phrases like, "I understand you're upset," try something a little more tailored. Reflect back what they're expressing, but keep it neutral. For example, you might say something like, "It sounds like you're really frustrated about this." Simple, right? But incredibly powerful. This approach works because it taps into the psychology of anger. Most of the time, people don't just want to yell, they want to be heard. When you acknowledge their emotions, you're giving them that, and it often takes the wind out of their sails. It's hard to stay full-on aggressive when someone's actively trying to understand where you're coming from. But let's be clear, acknowledging doesn't mean apologizing, agreeing, or backing down. It's not about giving them the satisfaction of winning. You're not saying they're right, you're saying their feelings are valid, even if their perspective isn't. And there's a huge difference between the two. The beauty of this technique is that it keeps you in control of the situation. You're not reacting emotionally, you're responding thoughtfully. That's a stoic move through and through. Here's another thing, acknowledging their emotions can actually shift the tone of the interaction. It turns a heated exchange into something a little more human. You're essentially inviting them to calm down and have a real conversation instead of a shouting match. You're steering the ship without them even realizing it. And here's the kicker, when you handle it this way, it subtly forces them to reflect on their behavior. Most people don't expect calm and composed acknowledgement when they're being aggressive. When they get it, it often makes them second-guess their approach. That little moment of reflection, that's where the seeds of regret start to grow. It's not instant, but it's there. And you didn't even have to raise your voice or compromise your own position. Number 6, avoid reacting defensively. When someone's coming at you with aggressive energy, the natural urge is to fight back, right? Your instinct is probably screaming, "Defend yourself." Whether that's through words, body language, or just throwing up a wall of attitude. But here's the kicker, reacting defensively is exactly what an aggressive person expects. It's like handing them fuel for their fire. If you want to flip the script and make them feel, well, kind of ridiculous for coming at you so hard, the trick is to not react defensively at all. I know what you're thinking. Not react defensively? What am I supposed to do, just stand there? Not quite. It's less about doing nothing and more about how you respond. When you react defensively, even if it's subtle, like raising your voice, explaining yourself in a rush, or immediately countering their argument, it signals one thing: you feel threatened. And that's blood in the water for aggression. Defensiveness is like shouting, "Hey, you're getting to me." Even if you don't say it outright, the vibe leaks through. And trust me, that's exactly what an aggressive person thrives on. Instead, think of the whole situation like a wave crashing against a rock. If you're solid and unmoving, the wave eventually loses momentum. That's the vibe you're going for. Instead of throwing up verbal shields, let their aggression roll off you. Stay calm. Breathe. Respond, don't react. If they're lobbing accusations or throwing shade, don't feel the need to immediately explain yourself. Let the words hang in the air for a moment. Sometimes, silence is more powerful than the sharpest comeback. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When you don't react defensively, something fascinating happens. The aggressor starts to feel off balance. Why? Because they're expecting a sparring partner, and you're refusing to put on the gloves. It's like they've shown up to a tennis match and you're just standing there, cool as a cucumber, watching their ball bounce past. They might even feel a little embarrassed. That's the power of staying composed, it flips the focus back on them. Another thing to keep in mind, defensiveness can make you say things you don't mean. When emotions are running high, It's easy to blurt out a weak excuse, an exaggerated claim, or worse, something hurtful. But when you resist the urge to defend, you stay in control of your words. And in moments of conflict, control is everything. Stoics were big on this idea. They believed that our true power lies in how we choose to respond. By avoiding defensiveness, you're not just staying calm, you're showing strength. You're saying, without saying it, I don't need to defend myself to you. I'm solid in who I am. So next time someone comes at you with aggressive energy, pause. Instead of scrambling to defend your ground, stand for a minute. Watch how the energy shifts, and watch them start to wonder why their words didn't hit the way they thought they would. You're unshakable, and that's a power no amount of aggression can break. Number 7, use humor to diffuse tension. When you're in a heated moment with someone who's aggressive, the last thing you might feel like doing is cracking a joke. But here's the thing, humor is a surprisingly powerful tool in these situations. It's like having a pressure release valve on a boiling pot. When the tension is rising, humor can diffuse it in a way that's almost magical, and the best part? You're still staying in control of the situation. Now, this isn't about making light of the issue or laughing it off entirely. That's not what we're after here. Instead, it's about using humor as a way to break the ice, disarm the aggression, and shift the tone of the conversation. When you introduce a bit of levity into an intense exchange, it does something remarkable. It makes everyone, including you, step out of the emotional swirl for a moment. It's like pressing pause and allowing everyone to breathe before continuing. Humor interrupts the pattern of anger and opens up a new possibility for connection. Here's the trick: when someone's being aggressive, their emotional energy is high, and everything they say feels like a punch. But when you introduce humor in a gentle, non-confrontational way, you're showing them that you're not going to react to their energy. It's like you're saying, I'm not taking this too seriously, so maybe you shouldn't either. The right kind of humor doesn't belittle them or the situation, it just lightens the mood and invites everyone to reset. Let's be clear though, humor isn't about undermining the seriousness of the conversation or using it as a distraction. It's about releasing the grip of aggression so you can move forward without being trapped in an emotional deadlock. A well-timed light-hearted remark can shift the focus, allow both parties to step back, and even make the other person feel a bit silly for getting so worked up in the first place. After all, humor has this magical quality of cutting through the tension without adding fuel to the fire. The key here is knowing when to use humor and how to deliver it. It's not about cracking jokes every few seconds to avoid the issue, but rather sprinkling in a touch of wit that shifts the atmosphere. You don't need to be a stand-up comedian, just someone who can see the absurdity of the situation and call it out. That's where the real power of humor lies. It's in the subtle shift of perspective. It shows that you're not fazed, that you're not stuck in the emotional chaos, and that the tension can be relieved without making a scene. What's even more interesting is that humor can bring you closer to the person who's being aggressive. They might come into the conversation looking to dominate, but if you make them laugh, even if it's just a little, you humanize the interaction. You're no longer an opponent to argue with, you're someone who's able to handle the situation with grace and humor. It makes them take a step back and reconsider their approach. It's a clever way to regain control of the conversation without raising your voice or escalating things. So next time you're facing an aggressive person, don't just brace yourself for the verbal barrage. Try throwing in a little humor, just enough to shake things up. It's not about dismissing their anger, but about offering them a new way of seeing the situation. Humor can turn a tense standoff into a moment of calm, and you might just find that the aggression dissolves into something much more manageable. Number 8, express understanding and empathy. Here's the thing about empathy, it's not just some fluffy, feel-good concept people throw around. It's a tool, a strategy, and, frankly, a little bit of a superpower when dealing with aggression. Why? Because empathy doesn't fight fire with fire. It doesn't raise its fists or yell back. It sits in the calm center of the storm and says, "I see you. I get it." And those 5 words, spoken or unspoken, can be transformative. When someone's angry or aggressive, what they're really doing is broadcasting their emotions in the loudest way possible. Beneath the raised voice, harsh words, or clenched fists, there's usually something raw, a frustration, a hurt, or even fear. Expressing understanding and empathy doesn't mean you're excusing their behavior or agreeing with their point of view. No, it's about recognizing their humanity in that moment. And when you do that, you strip away some of their aggression's power. Let's talk about how this actually works. First off, understanding is about listening, not fixing. You're not swooping in with solutions or trying to convince them of anything. Instead, you're reflecting their emotions back to them in a way that shows you're tuned in. Simple phrases like, "I can see this is really upsetting for you," or "It sounds like this has been weighing on you," can be surprisingly effective. They're like tiny olive branches, signals that you're not here to battle, but to understand. And empathy? That's the next level. Empathy takes understanding and adds heart to it. It's not just saying, "I see you're angry." It's saying, "I can imagine how frustrating that must feel." See the difference? One acknowledges the emotion, the other steps into it, even if just for a moment. When you express empathy, you're not just recognizing their feelings, you're connecting with them. And connection has this weird way of softening aggression. But here's the catch, it's got to be genuine. People can spot fake empathy a mile away, and nothing fuels aggression faster than feeling dismissed or patronized. So, you've got to mean it. That doesn't mean you need to pour your heart out or get overly emotional. Just be authentic. Let your tone match your words. Speak slowly, with intention. Leave space for silence, if needed. Sometimes, it's not about saying the perfect thing but just being there in the moment, holding space for them to unload. When you approach aggression with empathy, it creates a shift. You're no longer an adversary in their eyes, you're someone who's trying to meet them halfway. And that's disarming. It's hard to stay angry at someone who's actively trying to understand you. It forces a pause, even if it's just a split second. In that pause, something changes. Maybe it's small, maybe they don't even realize it, but they feel heard. And when someone feels heard, they're far more likely to calm down and, later, reflect on their behavior. The beauty of expressing empathy is that it doesn't just help them, it helps you, too. It keeps you grounded, keeps your own emotions in check. And at the end of the day, that's what being stoic is all about, mastering yourself, no matter what chaos is thrown your way. Number 9, stay silent and let them overextend. Silence. It's a weapon that's as sharp as it is invisible. When someone's coming at you with aggression, words flying, tone sharp, maybe even gestures getting a little too animated, the urge to jump in and match their energy can feel almost overwhelming. But here's the thing, when you choose to stay silent instead, you're not just withholding words, you're pulling the rug out from under them. Let's talk about what happens when you stay quiet. First, silence creates space. And not just any space, the kind that makes the other person a little uncomfortable. You know that feeling when you've said too much, and the other person just stares at you, not giving you anything to work with? That's the power you're tapping into. Silence isn't passive, it's incredibly active. It puts the ball entirely in their court, leaving them to figure out what to do next. And, spoiler alert, aggressive people aren't great at handling that kind of power shift. When you're silent, they might start to overextend. They might talk more, repeat themselves, or even escalate their aggression, all in an attempt to get a reaction out of you. Why? Because silence feels unnatural to them in that moment. Aggressive energy thrives on friction, on push and pull dynamics. Without that, it loses momentum. Imagine their words as a swing. It's only effective if it hits something. But if it doesn't, they're just swinging at air, exhausting themselves. Here's another thing. Silence makes them hyper-aware of their own behavior. Think about it. When someone's yelling or making a big scene, they're often so caught up in the heat of the moment that they don't even realize how over the top they sound. Your silence acts like a mirror. It forces them to hear their own voice, their own tone, without any distractions. And honestly, that realization can be embarrassing. But let's be clear, this isn't about being smug or trying to win. Silence isn't about rubbing their mistakes in their face. It's about letting the situation de-escalate naturally. Sometimes, when you stay quiet, the aggressive person starts to backpedal on their own. They might realize they've gone too far, or they might just run out of steam. Either way, your silence allows them to come to their own conclusion without feeling like they've been defeated. And that's a subtle, but powerful, way to get someone to reflect on their actions. Now, staying silent isn't easy. It takes discipline. Your ego will beg you to jump in, to defend yourself, to set the record straight. But here's the secret: silence isn't weakness. It's the ultimate show of strength. It says, without saying it, I don't need to play this game. I'm above it. And that's a statement that carries more weight than any argument ever could. So, next time someone's coming at you with all their fiery energy, try it. Stay quiet. Let them talk themselves into a corner. Let them overextend. And when they finally run out of things to say, you'll find yourself standing there, calm and unshaken. It's a power move like no other. Number 10. Repeat their words neutrally to reflect their behavior. Sometimes, when someone's coming at you with aggression, the best response isn't to argue or defend yourself. Instead, it can be surprisingly effective to mirror what they're saying, but in a neutral, non-defensive way. This technique is called repeating their words neutrally, and it's a powerful tool to both disarm their anger and make them reflect on their own behavior. It's like holding up a mirror to them, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that invites self-awareness. Here's how it works. When someone aggressively unloads their words on you, instead of reacting impulsively or getting defensive, you simply repeat what they said, back to them, without any added emotional charge. You don't exaggerate, you don't soften the blow, you just reflect their words in a calm, collected manner. By doing this, you're doing a few things at once. First, you're showing them that you're listening. Aggressive people often feel like they're not being heard. They're usually so caught up in their own emotions that they don't even realize they might be overwhelming the conversation. When you mirror their words back, you signal that you're paying attention to what they're saying, but you're not immediately reacting. You're creating a pause, a space, where they have a chance to reconsider what they've just said. Second, this technique forces them to hear their own words as if from a third-party perspective. Aggression often clouds judgment. When they say something heated, it's all coming from their emotional state, and they may not even fully realize how harsh they're being. By repeating their words neutrally, you make them confront their own tone and message. It's a subtle way to put the mirror up and ask, is this really how you want to express yourself? Often, when they hear their own words, the weight of their anger becomes more apparent to them, and they may start to rethink the way they've been speaking. Let's dig deeper into the power of this approach. When you repeat their words, you don't interrupt them, you don't dismiss them, and you certainly don't escalate things by matching their intensity. You remain calm, neutral, and composed. This can be disorienting for someone who's used to getting a rise out of others. Instead of getting the conflict they expect, they get a calm reflection of their own aggression, which, over time, can start to deflate their fiery demeanor. It's like pulling the rug out from under their emotional tirade without them even realizing it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Doesn't this just make me sound like a robot or someone who doesn't care? Not at all. The key is in how you deliver it. You're not parroting their words in a mocking way or using an overly formal tone. You're simply repeating what they've said, but without the emotional edge. It's about staying in control of your emotional responses and creating an opportunity for them to see their own behavior from a different perspective. When done right, it's a subtle but effective way to prompt self-reflection. Another benefit is that it can slow down the conversation. Aggressive exchanges are fast-paced and often filled with rapid-fire accusations. When you calmly repeat their words, you break that momentum. You're slowing down the conversation, creating a moment of pause and reflection. This gives both of you time to regain your composure, especially if things are getting heated. So next time you're faced with aggression, remember that sometimes the best response is not to react, but to reflect. By repeating their words neutrally, you give them the space to reconsider their approach, all while maintaining control of the situation. It's a quiet yet powerful tool that often leads them to rethink not just what they said, but how they said it. And in many cases, that shift in perspective can make them sorry for their aggression. Number 11, point out contradictions gently. The art of spotting contradictions, it's a fine line to walk, isn't it? On one hand, it can be a powerful way to make someone reflect on their behavior or words. But on the other hand, if you come off too blunt or smug, you'll just pour gasoline on the fire. That's why the key word here is gently. You're not trying to call them out like a judge slamming a gavel. You're inviting them to see things differently without making them feel attacked. Here's the thing, when people are aggressive, they're often running on emotion rather than logic. And emotions? They're messy, inconsistent, and full of contradictions. Your job isn't to pick apart every little inconsistency like some kind of verbal sniper. Instead, it's to guide the conversation in a way that helps them notice the gaps in their own logic, without them feeling like you're rubbing their face in it. So how do you do it? Start by staying calm and curious. Let your tone be light, almost as if you're genuinely puzzled. Curiosity has this magical way of making your words feel less threatening. For example, you could say something like, "I might be misunderstanding, but earlier you said X, and now it sounds like Y. Can you help me understand how those two fit together?" You're not accusing them of anything, you're inviting them to explain. That's disarming. Notice what's happening here. You're not pointing the finger. You're holding up a mirror. People are way more likely to rethink their stance when they feel like they've discovered the inconsistency themselves rather than having it shoved in their face. It's about planting a seed, not dropping a boulder. Another tip? Pay attention to your phrasing. Words like "help me understand" or "I'm curious about" work wonders because they keep the focus on you, not them. It feels collaborative, not confrontational. On the flip side, avoid phrases like "you're contradicting yourself" or "that doesn't make sense," which can come off as combative or dismissive. The goal is to guide, not to shame. This approach works because it forces a pause. Aggression thrives on momentum, it's all heat and motion. But when you gently point out a contradiction, it's like throwing a pebble in the gears. The other person has to stop, if only for a moment, to reconcile what they've said. And in that pause, there's space for reflection. Sometimes, that's all it takes to shift the tone of the conversation. And let's not forget, staying gentle and composed when pointing out contradictions also protects your own peace of mind. You're not getting dragged into the emotional whirlwind. You're staying steady, choosing your words carefully, and maintaining control. That's a stoic move, plain and simple. At the end of the day, people don't respond well to being called out in a harsh way. But when you nudge them gently, showing them the cracks in their logic without being accusatory, it's a whole different story. It's a subtle yet powerful way to turn the tide, making them pause and, hopefully, reflect on their behavior. And that reflection? That's where the regret starts to creep in. Number 12, maintain eye contact confidently. Eye contact, It's one of those things that seems simple, just look at the person, right? But when someone's being aggressive, keeping your gaze steady is anything but easy. It's tempting to glance away, look down, or even pretend to focus on something else entirely. But here's the deal, maintaining confident eye contact isn't just about looking at someone, it's about sending a silent, unshakable message. When you hold eye contact in the middle of a heated situation, it says, I see you. I hear you. And I'm not intimidated. You're not backing down, but you're also not engaging in the same aggressive energy they're throwing at you. It's like planting your feet firmly on the ground without lifting a single finger. Your eyes do all the work. Now, let's get one thing straight. Confident eye contact isn't about staring someone down like you're in a contest to see who blinks first. That's not confidence, that's intimidation, and it'll likely escalate the tension. The key is to stay relaxed. Let your gaze be steady but soft. Think of it as standing your ground emotionally, not trying to overpower them. It's a balance, a subtle but powerful way to communicate that you're unfazed, even if they're coming at you full force. Why does this work? Because most aggressive people expect you to crumble. They're looking for signs of weakness, whether it's in your voice, your posture, or your eyes. When you maintain calm, unwavering eye contact, it throws them off. Suddenly, they're not as sure of their own dominance. That crack in their confidence? It's subtle, but it's there. Another fascinating thing about eye contact is that it forces connection. When you look someone in the eyes, you're acknowledging their humanity, even in the middle of conflict. That's powerful. It's hard to keep yelling or being aggressive when the other person is looking at you with steady, composed energy. It creates a moment where, even if they don't realize it, they're confronted with their own behavior. But here's the trick, it's not just about them. Maintaining eye contact helps you, too. It grounds you in the moment, reminding you to stay present. Instead of letting your mind race with defensive thoughts or getting caught up in the heat of the moment, you're anchoring yourself. It's a quiet form of self-control. And self-control? That's pure stoicism in action. Let's not forget the confidence boost it gives you. When you look someone directly in the eyes, you're affirming to yourself that you're not afraid. It's like a mental pep talk without words. Over time, this habit builds resilience. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes to face any situation with composure and strength. So, next time someone's aggression starts to rise, meet their eyes. Don't flinch. Don't glare. Just hold their gaze with calm, steady assurance. It's not flashy. It's not loud. But that quiet confidence, it speaks volumes. And trust me, they'll notice. Number 13, end the conversation if they refuse to calm down. There's a point in almost every aggressive conversation where you realize that no matter how calmly you respond, no matter how much you try to steer the dialogue into calmer waters, the other person simply won't back down. It's frustrating, but here's the truth, sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself, and for the situation, is to walk away. Ending the conversation is not a sign of weakness, in fact, it's often the strongest move you can make. And more importantly, it might just be the thing that makes them start to reconsider their behavior. When someone is caught up in their anger, they're not truly engaging in a productive conversation. They're on autopilot, driven by emotion, and their words are more about venting than solving anything. So, continuing to engage at that point only fuels the fire. You're not going to reason with them when they're in that state. The argument will only get louder, more intense, and more damaging. The power is in knowing when to disengage before things go off the rails completely. Imagine this, no matter how much you stay calm, how much you try to redirect the conversation or offer solutions, the other person keeps escalating. It's exhausting, right? You can feel your energy draining as they keep piling on the negativity. This is when it's time to pull back. Ending the conversation doesn't mean you're abandoning the issue or conceding defeat. It means you're setting a boundary. You're recognizing that the conversation has hit a dead end and that continuing it will only harm both of you more than help. When you decide to end the conversation, it's important to do it firmly, but not in a way that invites more conflict. Don't slam the door in their face or give them an ultimatum. Instead, say something calm, but resolute, something like, "I can see that we're not getting anywhere right now, and I'm not going to continue this conversation until we can both speak calmly." The goal is to make it clear that you won't participate in a conversation that's driven by aggression. You're setting a standard for how you expect to be treated, and you're telling them that their behavior won't be tolerated, but you're also leaving the door open for a future conversation when emotions have cooled. The beauty of ending the conversation in this way is that it forces a shift. You're no longer part of the emotional chaos, and by walking away, you show that you're not afraid to stand your ground. It's a silent form of control, where you're taking the power back without raising your voice or getting defensive. It sends a message that you value respect and constructive communication, and you won't engage in anything less. Also, when you step away, you're not just protecting yourself, you're giving them the space to reflect. In the heat of the moment, people don't often take the time to consider how their words might be coming across. But once the conversation ends, they're left with their own thoughts. They might start to feel the weight of their own aggression and begin to question if it was worth it. That pause could be exactly what they need to reset and rethink their approach. In some cases, this time apart is exactly what's needed for them to come to the realization that their behavior was out of line. And when they return to the conversation, if they do, they'll likely come with a different, more open mindset. They might apologize, or at the very least, recognize that their aggression wasn't productive. In the end, ending the conversation when things are getting out of hand isn't just about protecting your peace, it's a subtle yet effective way to make them regret their aggressive stance and approach the situation more thoughtfully next time. Thank you for watching. Handling aggression with composure and wisdom is a true reflection of inner strength. By mastering these verbal strategies inspired by Stoic philosophy, you can diffuse tension and maintain control of any situation. If you found value in this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more powerful insights. Share this video with someone who could use these tools to navigate difficult interactions. Remember, true power lies in staying calm and making others regret their aggression without losing your integrity. Stay composed, stay resilient, and keep building your inner control. See you in the next video.